Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow is underway. 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The Friday edition
has arrived. We made it to the end of the week, everyone. We made it to the end of the week. How about that?
Championship weekend across college football. NFL Week 13 slate got off to a great start last night. Dallas coming back to defeat Seattle in a high-scoring game. When we opened a show saying that about the National Football League?
I went under
often.
Based on the stats of all the previous games, and that over hit by halftime.
Jed, of all the championship games for college football, you've got your top 10 games of the week, which happen to be 10 championship games. We'll rank those coming up later in the show.
Perfect for this list.
Which game are you most anticipating?
It's my number one game.
Okay.
And it's no huge surprise. Much like last week, Michigan-Ohio State was the easy number one. I think this week it's pretty clear-cut. Georgia-Bama, SEC championship is what I'm most looking forward to.
It still comes down to that, and then what happens based on that result.
Yes.
Yeah.
While that game is happening, I will be on TV across the state of Tennessee calling Decatur County Riverside versus East Robertson.
That's number 2 on your list.
I think that game is going to blow the ratings out of the water in the state of Tennessee over the SEC championship between Bama and Georgia. But I am recording the game and look forward to watching and recapping it here on Monday.
Big noon kickoff will be at set up of the game, and then what is it, like FS2 will be at set up for pregame for you or something?
Yeah, I think we're going to have our own pregame.
There you go.
Yeah, we're just going to do it. We're going to do it. It's just going to be with the parents that are there in the parking lot. It's not actually going to be on any television or digital platform, just there live for everyone.
Yeah, but fair enough.
It's going to be great,
Closed circuit.
Yeah.
Trey Wallace will be in Atlanta for the SEC title game between Georgia and Bama. He's there already. He'll join us in 20 minutes. Preview that and all of the college football games that are coming up tonight or throughout the day tomorrow. Michael Fabiano, our fantasy football guru. He does it all for Sports Illustrated. He joins us later this hour as well. He wins. I need some help just based on all the injuries across and a lot of bye weeks this week for top fantasy rosters. We'll help you set yours coming up later this hour. Former Arkansas Razorback quarterback Clint Stoerner joins us. A lot of movement with coaches, not just head coaches. One of them happening with Bobby Petrino returning to Arkansas as the offensive coordinator. And then, of course, we'll get the former SEC QB's thoughts on the top championship games. Kelly in Vegas sets the lines for us in those. Plus, we mentioned Chad's got his top 10 championship games, and he'll rank those coming up.
It's a big show. I feel like Trey Wallace is sort of a gonzo journalist from back in the day, like Hunter S. Thompson. He really embeds himself in the town that he's in. Yeah. You follow him on social media.
Does
you
he
read his
hallucinate
work
the same way that
Well,
Hunter
he's
S.
just all in. Like, he's right there when Gene Smith is getting into it with a Michigan staffer. He's just inside of everything, the town that he's in. He really enters the city, is what I'm saying.
When he's on the road.
He's got fan stuff going on. He's got photos of the city. He really gets all in there.
When Trey's on the road,
all in, which I appreciate.
I don't know Trey's middle name. We need to have the initial whenever he's on the road.
Yeah, Trey B. Wallace.
Trey B. Wallace.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Trey J. Wallace does sound
Capital
good.
J.
Capital J.
Capital.
Our gonzo journalist with a capital J, Trey J. Wallace, joining us on location in Atlanta, where he has fully embedded and immersed himself into Southern football culture, and he's going to have all the reports. I love following him on social media. I love reading him at OutKick because he gets all up in there in the city that he's in, and I respect it.
Yeah, man. Well, I can't wait to discuss the top storylines, not just from Georgia, Bama, but more. Again, that's coming up soon. So,
speaking of social media, by the way, I'm just going to take a photo of this right here as we talk.
Okay.
Because I haven't posted anything on social media
do it now.
in so long.
Well,
I probably should do that.
My reaction from what I've been reading on social media is where I'd like to jump off because Deion Sanders is named Sportsperson of the Year for Sports Illustrated. And while I don't get into all the titles and stuff, they're selling magazines, and Deion sells. And I guess that's my overall point here. By the way, it's a great cover. If you still had the print magazine, you still pick up those. No one does. But this would be one that I would have as a kid growing up, Chad. I love the SIs of back in the day. This kind of reminds me of that, but the new school approach. And the new school approach is also to just find something to complain about or find a reason to disagree with another media outlet. Just because they make him Sportsperson of the Year. I'm saying fans, just those on social in general. In what SI put out there, I was just reading through the responses. And a lot of it is, go 1-8 in conference and you're Sports Person of the Year. Win 4 games and you can win this award from SI. And it very cynical. Some of it's tongue-in-cheek. Most of it, though, was just disagreeing with the decision. And I'm thinking, name a coach who has put more eyeballs on a product for the caliber of a program that Colorado was last year to where they are right now, and the overall talking point and emphasis of what was driving the sports discussion, what we were talking about at the sports bar, what you would call up your dad and talk about and what he was watching, and where the highlights were on any given weekend night recapping a game. Colorado was there, and they had the major networks and the biggest programs for college football on campus for their game against Colorado State in September. That fast. And right out of the gates, they're beating TCU. Win-loss record will factor in for him moving forward. This year, I thought this was a no-brainer, and I don't understand why there's such pushback on why he is named Sports Person of the Year for Sports Illustrated, because what he's done is drive more traffic and bring more to the product of overall college football than just the regional, hey, I'm an SEC fan, I'm going to follow this. Or the SEC is a national brand. Hey, it's the Pac12. I'm actually going to pay attention to it. We weren't watching USC throughout the month of September. We watched the Trojans and the Heisman Trophy winner from last year in week 0 because it's one of the few games on. And then we didn't really see them again until they played Colorado. And that's because of Deion Sanders. The new age met the old school approach. SI, for me, that cover looks old school. Deion has brought this brand that put him on the same shelf, not just from a marketing perspective, but from a recognizable product for on campus and off. He's right there with Saban and others as far as marketability and really just the traffic that was involved in it. Eyeballs and numbers are on the product. He's not going anywhere from that aspect. Maybe he goes somewhere else in a couple of years when Shadur's not there. But Chad, he won 1 game. He loses to Stanford, gives up that big lead, whatever. And I have no problem with this award. Very deserving based on what I expected.
I don't look. Let's start big picture here. I think way too much emphasis and anger is placed on any media company or publication and what their editors choose as an award winner, right? And this goes back to Caitlyn Jenner winning the ESPY, which was that's kind of the point in time where everyone marks
courage.
It's like
it was the courage award.
Yeah, it's
so courageous.
Pre and post CJ Caitlyn Jenner on that with the ESPYs, and in many ways the way ESPN is viewed. It stopped being, this is a really great story to highlight Arthur Ashe Courage Award to this is ESPN and now ESPN Disney placating to a certain ideology, right? That's where the change happened. But I also will go back and say, who cares? Like it's the ESPYs, they can do what they want. I don't know that we should get up in arms about who they choose to win an award. I'll watch some of the prepackaged stuff from it if I like the recipient or I like what they're doing. And if not, I'm probably not going to check it out. I'm going to kind of piecemeal it and watch it that way. Sports Illustrated is trying to sell magazines, first and foremost, okay? So let's keep that in mind when we talk about Deion Sanders winning this.
And that's my overall point.
I would not use the word deserving for Deion Sanders as Sportsman of the Year, right?
Sports Person of the Year.
Sports Person of the Year. I don't know that he deserves it, given that it was a 4-8 record in the end. And that's a half game more than their Vegas over-under. Now, they're trying to sell magazines, so I don't really care if they want to. So I'm not going to get outraged by it. But I just go back and look at past Sports Persons of the Year. All right, in order. 2022, Steph Curry, NBA Finals MVP, 4th title in 8 years. The year before that, Tom Brady, Super Bowl MVP, 7-time Super Bowl champion. Now, 2020 was a hodgepodge of a lot of different things.
Right.
LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, Naomi Osaka, Breanna Stewart, and the offensive lineman, Duvernay Tardif, that was also doing work during COVID-19. Yep. So it was a lot of different things. 2019, Get ready to be triggered, everybody. Megan Rapinoe was the winner then, okay? Let's skip past that. 2018 was the entire Golden State Warriors team for their third title in 4 years. Then you had J.J. Watt and Jose Altuve, LeBron James in 2016, Serena Williams 2015, Madison Bumgarner, NLCS MVP, World Series MVP, World Series champion for the Giants. Then, outside of 2020, every sports person of the year accomplished something great on their court, on their field, on their pitch in that year. So this is a bit of an outlier. Now, if we're saying sports salesperson of the year, brought tons of attention to a sport, garnered national attention, had great quotes, did a lot of good things that brought attention not just to Colorado, but college football early in the season where ratings went way down as the year went on with Colorado when they started losing. Sure. And overall, I'm fine with it because I know deep down what Sports Illustrated's trying to do is just sell magazines. But is he deserving? I don't think so.
The ratings went way down, but at 9 o'clock on the West Coast, correct me if no, East Coast, 9 o'clock, game kicked off, the rating peaked at, what was the million rating that we discussed? Over 4 or 5 million at like 1 a.m. on the East Coast whenever they were playing in like week 3 or week 4. They're trying to sell magazines because Deion sells. And quite frankly, salesperson of the year is sports person of the year right now. There are coaches who give good quotes, but they don't drive the audience the way he does. How many Colorado games did we watch this year before we watched the Washington Huskies play? He's not just sports person of the year for SI, ESPN, Fox. The list goes on and on.
A lot of people watched him. Absolutely.
Yes.
Like I don't, but
it's either him or Travis Kelce this year.
It's how you.
That's
view
all we
it.
talked about.
I'm just giving you the past winners, and everyone actually won something that did it outside of 2020. So it is a departure from what they're normally doing. 2011 was Mike Krzyzewski and Pat Summitt splitting the award. 2010 was Drew Brees winning a Super Bowl. 2009 was Derek Jeter, World Series champion. 2008 was Michael Phelps. This is one of those games where you play in school and say, spot the outlier here.
But I don't look at what Colorado's record is and say Deion lost. Deion won big in a massive way.
Did he win as big as people who won titles? That's where people are getting outraged by. Again, I don't care. They can choose whoever they want for it. They pick the one who's the biggest salesperson.
Okay.
That didn't win on the court. But
then I guess Stetson Bennett should have been the guy. If we're going to go to who won titles in back-to-back.
It doesn't have to be in college football.
Well, but I'm just staying in college football.
Novak Djokovic with the records he broke. There's plenty of individuals, too, you can point to and say, there's your sports person of the year.
Just as far as chatter and what we're watching, though, for sports, I would define the college football season right now through Deion. We talked as much Deion Sanders in Colorado as we have talked about the Georgia Bulldogs going for a three-peat. More.
I think it changed with Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. And as the year went on, it became way more about that. But, yes, for the first month, it was the story. Absolutely. It went way down after that when they started losing. Way down. The interest in it. Again, is it about what most people talked about or watched, or is it about what they accomplished? That's Sports Illustrated's decision. I don't think people should be outraged by it one way or the other. That is their call to make. I'm just simply saying every other year they've picked someone outside of 2020 where that actually won something.
Well, the other thing, too, that where they're headed versus where they were, I'm not going to doubt. So here's the thing. What did Sanders accomplish compared to what Hugh Freeze accomplished by turning over his roster through the portal at Auburn? Just compare the mentality and the approach and the attention to the product overall, and honestly, in many cases, the competitive games despite losing. I mean, if we're just going to compare, like, trying to flip it and try to win one year, I still point to the Buffaloes there. Oh, and then on top of all of that, there's really no controversy around Deion Sanders, which is surprising to me as well. In practically every case when I hear the guy talk, I think that's reasonable, and he's onto something, and I appreciate the lane that he's taking to a question that involves what should he think about leaving the Pac-12, what should be going on with his thoughts on who should be fired, who shouldn't be fired, response to what is happening with Michigan compared to what his approach is, what the NCAA is doing for eligibility purposes, all of that. I mean, he was answering all of it, and he was accountable to the losses. And that was the other thing, too. I was curious about how he would handle the loss versus how his team was reacting to wins. And I thought all of that was, if not perfect, close to it and spot on with compared to what I thought was going to happen.
I don't know where they're headed right now because they are striking out left and right in recruiting. And I don't get that because I thought that would be the one area where he would excel. And we'll see if this complete turnover for a second straight year is going to pay off this time where it didn't pay off this past year for Deion Sanders. The good news is he's got a son playing quarterback for him, and he's terrific.
And he'll be at Colorado through that term.
If they can keep him upright, maybe they'll have a chance. But I'm not so sure I know exactly where Deion's headed from a win-loss standpoint at Colorado. Need to see a little bit more than what I saw this year.
Chad, do you remember their opening slate for next year by chance?
We
went through it.
I'm going to go look at it, though, because the changing conferences, too, next year.
We'll be watching it because it'll be on Fox and either ESPN. Trey Wallace is in Atlanta. He's on with us next.
This is a broader issue on professional versus amateur, and our college athletes amateur right now. Look, the Chicago Bears yesterday under Matt Eberflus just took a big dump in the bed because Matt Eberflus and his Tampa 2 defense went soft. Next thing you know, Jared Goff picked him apart, and Dan Campbell lost his ever-loving mind. That kind of deal. All right, here's the thing, though. When you're in college and you're being paid, guess what? Do you have an obligation? Do you have an obligation to speak to the media after a big game? Now, look, I understand if I'm the 6-team center. No, of course not. But when you're the quarterback of USC, fight on, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Here's the deal. USC quarterback is as high profile, particularly when you've just won the Heisman. And now all of a sudden you get your brains beat out for not the first, not the second, but the third straight time. Third straight time. You get your brains beat out by your rival, USC. You've already cried on the sidelines. You've had a horrible year. Apparently your team don't like you. They look like a dismantled mess. But you're a college athlete that's now making millions. Let me ask you guys. Are you to be treated like a pro? Are you to say, hey, look, this is just a student athlete. This is just a college kid. So Ian Rappaport on the rap sheet put this tweet out. And I'm curious about this. This fascinates me. Like, I'm tired of Caleb Williams. I've had enough of Caleb Williams. But Ian Rappaport made the connection from Joe Burrow speaking to the media when you are the face of a franchise. And he said this, Joe Burrow learned his season was over on Friday, understood his responsibility, went out, held a press conference. The job of a quarterback and the face of the franchise. Now, Ryan Cartier he's a USC guy. Caleb Williams has elected not to speak to the media after the loss to USC, a USC spokesman said. Now, let me go. See, I understand one is a professional athlete, all right? But isn't the other a professional athlete too? I mean, isn't Caleb Williams a professional athlete? This is where I've always said you got to be a little bit careful here. You do. You got to be a little bit careful. The deal is simple. You're being paid. You're a professional. You want to be an employee. As an employee, you have an obligation. You're the face of football going into the season. Now, you're not now. It's been a disappointing season. You've cried to your mama. You want to hug with your dogs. But, ladies and gentlemen, he's never going to suit up in a USC uniform again. So as soon as that is over, Is he a professional? I don't know, but it's a damn interesting thing to me. It really and truly is. It is a damn interesting thing because we want to treat these guys like kids. We do. We want to treat them like children. You know, when they get criticized, we want to say, well, they're just student athletes. You know what I mean? They're just student athletes. Okay, they're just student athletes. But the truth of the matter is they're paid employees. Maybe not the employee part, but they are paid. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like Caleb Williams is somebody you want on your team? Now, make no mistake. The measurables are going to be there, and he's going to be the first pick in the draft.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yacht Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton with our rolls on across the OutKick Network. Chad, Tate Rodemaker, Florida State quarterback, backup, of course, in for Jordan Travis. And the debate, I don't know if there was a debate, but the arguments being made both sides of you want the best team or the most deserving team in the college football playoff if you have the unbeaten ACC champ that could be left out. Right now, Florida State is fourth in those rankings. He is a game day decision for the ACC championship game because he took a hit to the head in the fourth quarter last week against Florida. And while he's participated in practice throughout the week, it has been in a limited fashion. You can tie it into concussion protocol, although they don't specify that in college. And if he can't go, Brock Glenn, who came in for him, I think attempted one pass last week. If he can't go,
I think he is from Savannah, Tennessee.
Is he really?
Yeah, the Brock Glenn.
That wouldn't be, he's a freshman. And if you're already discussing the committee, and they're not supposed to do this, but I guess they certainly could based on their criteria, and it mixes and matches every single year and week to week, quite frankly. Most deserving versus projecting what a team will do. This even ties it even more to our discussion a week and a half ago of Cardell Jones, who was the third string at Ohio State that year when they got in. But this would also strengthen the argument for the other side as well. And they're already currently fourth in those standings. What happens, hypothetically, if Oregon's going to win and then you have Michigan and maybe Bama, Texas, and then you have a freshman quarterback going to the playoff. Again, this would still be Rodemaker going in because you have the layoff before the game. But you still have that lasting impression if Florida State were to win. I don't think it's by blowout fashion, for instance, against Louisville, given the third-string freshman QB starting, if he does.
I am more interested in how people pronounce Rodemaker or Rodemaker than I am all of these hypotheticals about what could happen this weekend and about the top four. And I have put the poll question to our YouTube audience to ask how they pronounce it, and most are saying Rodemaker. This name, Hutton, has a way with me that looking at it and saying it, regardless of how I say it, regardless of how I say it, it sounds wrong. I say Rodemaker, that sounds wrong to me. Then I say Rodemaker, and it sounds wrong to me. Either way sounds incorrect. So I don't know how to pronounce it. We'll leave it up to everybody's doing the and the and the front. The main thing to me is the first part of it. Is it Ro or Ra? Rodemaker, Rodemaker. I've heard it both ways. I'm gonna leave it up to our audience on YouTube. Let us know.
We don't need Ro or Ra.
What you think?
ROAD or ROD.
I had a good buddy named Andy Rodermill, rest in peace. Good friend of mine growing up. And we know his father, Todd Rodermill, in fact, who works here in Nashville. Yep. That was Andy Rodermill. And when I see Rodemaker, I think Rodemaker, the way you're pronouncing it, because I see that name. But his name was also R-O-A-D, like road, not Rod, like Rodemaker. There's no A in there with that. Hutton, we could spend an entire show on this. You know, this could be an hour-long show coming to OutKick at some point, just you and me debating on the pronunciation of names, and then just sourcing it out to our audience and finding out what they think about the pronunciation of the name.
We need the pronunciation guide. Trey Wallace. We could easily say his name. Trey joins us from Atlanta. SEC championship game coming up between Georgia and Bama, and he's got you covered at OutKick.com on the road there.
Trey, does OutKick have you at the Bates Motel there in Atlanta? What's going on with the Wi-Fi connection in your place there, bud?
I think it's because there's probably 1,200 people here in a big Delta convention. I think they're taking up all the Wi-Fi.
Are you in whatever the hotel is? Every time I've been to an SEC championship, it's that hotel with like the huge rotunda in the middle where all the rooms face each other, and it's the giant circle. What hotel is that in downtown Atlanta? Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's the Hyatt Regency. It's the Hyatt Regency, and it's freaking me out, man. The elevators and like how high up. I don't like it at all. Like, it's freaking me out. When I walked in, I was like, okay, that's really high up. So
that is the spot to stay, though. Every SEC championship I've ever attended, I've stayed in that hotel or close by. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It's good to have you on, Trey.
It's good to be on. Sorry about the Wi-Fi. I wish I could control that. I should have purchased the $10 extra for the 1 gigabyte that they'd probably give. It's all a scam. It is what it is.
Trey, where does Bama have to be better against Georgia to be able to pull the upset and win the SEC title game tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it starts in the secondary, Jonathan. Look, Jalen Milroe is kind of come into his own over the last 5 games, I think, passing the football. Also, when it comes to running the football, I think that, if he gets to that second level, how's the Georgia secondary going to be able to control what Alabama's trying to do even on the perimeter? I think it comes down to, can Alabama make the plays? Can Alabama spread the field out a little bit? I do think it's possible, and I think that's where Alabama can try to take advantage. The biggest concern I would have, if there is a concern right now, is Georgia linebackers getting after Milroe and making him uncomfortable. But I think, and Alabama's in this spot right now, and Nick Saban and them will get it dialed up to where, look, they're going to test Georgia deep when a lot of teams this season have not had that ability, whether that be the pass rush, whether that be the rushing game, whether that be the linebackers. It doesn't matter. Alabama knows what they have to do, and to beat Georgia, they got to beat them down the field.
There's a line of thinking in this game that, clearly Georgia going for 3 straight national championships, they are the team to beat, but they're not the team that's been tested this year. Alabama in games against Arkansas, Tennessee, A&M, Auburn, it's within 6 points midway through the fourth quarter of all of those games. Georgia didn't have a ton of those this year. Could that possibly be to an advantage for Jalen Milroe and Alabama, having been in games where they're tested at that level, where, Trey, we expect Alabama to test Georgia in this game in the fourth quarter?
And isn't that the crazy part about it? We thought maybe 1 or 2 of these games Georgia would be tested, but they beat up Kentucky starting in the second quarter. We saw what happened with South Carolina earlier in the season. We saw what they did in Knoxville against Tennessee. And then you look on the other side with Alabama, they're a good football team, but there have been times this year where they've been tested in the second half. Look at last week. I know it's Auburn, and I get what the record was, and I get them losing to Mexico State, but that game is just different. I understand the win doesn't mean much, in terms of overall playoff seeding and whatnot besides winning. But I think overall, the way that we look at it right now, Chad, I think Alabama being tested the way that they were and being able to overcome that, and Nick Saban discussing that numerous times this year, I only think it helps the Tide.
Trey, if Bama wins, are they getting in? If Georgia loses, are they out?
That's the question. I mean, that's the big thing here is what is the SEC? How are they going to argue it? You saw Greg Sankey making comments to Pat McAfee about this. How could you keep the SEC out? Folks know what they're talking about when it comes to football. He's pretty much saying, look, if Alabama wins this football game, do not keep us out of the title game, the playoffs. And I think when it comes down to it, I don't know if you can. That's so hard for me to think about, guys. Even if Alabama wins this football game, you're going to keep the SEC out of the 14 playoff? Find me a better football team in college football right now. I think Alabama could hang with any of the top 4 at the moment. I think they could win against any of the top 4 at the moment. So when you get down to it, if they beat Georgia, you're telling me the SEC is going to still be on the outside because of Texas and potentially Oregon? Pretty wild.
Trey Wallace joining us from Atlanta. Trey, we will be reading your coverage and watching your work on social there in Atlanta for the SEC title game. Go get after it, man, and we look forward to catching up with you this weekend.
Hey, guys, I appreciate it. Y'all have a good weekend. Sorry about the connection. Just blame it on our travel agent. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All
Thanks,
good,
Trey. To answer what Trey was just talking about with the SEC deal, I don't think the SEC is going to get left out, but the scenario is simple. Texas wins and wins convincingly, and then Alabama wins the SEC championship, and you're left with a decision with there's 3 undefeated teams, and then Alabama or Texas. And I'm sorry, SEC fans, but Texas deserves that spot. They went to Tuscaloosa and won. End of story. End of discussion. I'm as tried and true Southern SEC guy as it comes, but I think it's hilarious that everyone in the South just thinks it is a birthright that there's no way you leave an SEC team out of this 14 play. Damn right there's a way. That's the way. You're left with a decision of 1-loss teams in that. And then let's say Washington wins, Michigan wins, and Florida State wins, and Alabama beats Georgia. To me, then the decision comes down to it's Alabama or Texas. Both 1-loss, both won their conference, and guess what? Texas went to Alabama and won outright.
Now,
that
you're
is
saying
Texas's
Georgia's
spot.
in. You're saying Georgia's in this scenario as well.
No, I'm saying
they're falling to 5.
I'm saying, well, then you have a decision between Georgia also in that. But I'm putting Texas above them as a conference champion. Georgia didn't win their conference.
Well, and I think the conference champion has to hold the weight this year. It has to.
I think Georgia falls out
because
in this scenario.
Here's the thing, Chad. If we're just going to have that debate, Ohio State has to be in that debate too.
But see, Ohio State did not win their conference. I still place value in winning a conference championship.
No, I'm saying if you don't value the SEC title game or the Big 12 championship game, if you're not going to weigh that as more as being the conference champion, Ohio State would also be in the mix, and they're right there based on where they're ranked.
Again, I'm looking more, and these games are going to go away. These conference championship games will eventually go away, and we won't be talking about it with a 12-team playoff. But right now they matter. They're happening, and they're for a conference championship. So if I'm just weighing everything that happened, I am going.
And I want them to.
Undefeated conference champion, Power 5 is in.
Yes.
Undefeated conference champion, Power 5 is in. Undefeated conference champion, Power 5 is in. Then I sift through the other conference champions, and I see Texas versus Alabama in this scenario we're talking about. And Texas gets the spot. Plain and simple to me. And I don't think first off, I don't think it's going to break out all that way. Something else is going to happen here. And I think the SEC will get in. And look, I think Alabama and Georgia are probably 2 of the best teams in the country, and certainly 2 of the 4. But this is what I constantly fall back on. And I know Kirk Herbstreit argued this. I'm tired of blowouts in the semifinals. I don't care what's happened. Let's just give us the best 4 teams regardless. I don't care what the committee tells me is going to happen or a projection. Tell me what's happened. Show me the season, the resume for these teams, and put the best 4 seasons and resume. This is where most deserving matters. Give me the most deserving teams in that 4-team playoff. That's how sports operate. Sports do not operate on projections. We watch and we love it because it is unpredictable.
But they did last year. We saw it happen to Hendon Hooker when he went down,
and I hate it.
But we saw them rank them there based on projections.
It's also hilarious to me to see once again, Alabama fans are saying, well, head-to-head shouldn't matter in this case. Because that was the case a year ago with Hendon Hooker because Alabama was ranked ahead of Tennessee in that rating. Didn't matter for a playoff spot, but they were ranked ahead of them, and you had Tennessee fans saying
it mattered for the bowl game.
They won head-to-head.
It did.
I'm staying consistent here. Head-to-head should matter. Conference championship should matter.
Yep.
And give me the best 4 resumes and not what you think is going to happen. Sports are unpredictable. I don't care what the committee thinks about who are the best teams right now or who should be the best 4 teams going forward. Hutton, you and I can do that right now. It's Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, and Michigan. Those are the best 4 teams. In my mind, from what I've seen and the way these teams are playing down the stretch, those are the best 4 teams in college football. It'd be a hell of a playoff. But that's not how sports should operate. It is a meritocracy, and your merit is based on what you've done and accomplished. So I need to see the resumes, and I see what you've done. Not about me. It's about the teams and what they've accomplished. Give me the 4 best resumes.
It's also not if you lose, how you lose. And Texas ran away with that game when they played.
Yeah, it wasn't particularly close.
No, I mean, it was, they won in the trenches. Now, right after that, you have Bama go to the non-power 5. They play in Tampa, but it was their home game, and that's where they play. I'm watching that going, man, what is going on with Bama? This has been a trend with the penalties and the different mistakes, 12 men on the field, all that. And then they flipped it. And if it's a tight game for Texas and a blowout win over Georgia, again, it's all hypothetical.
It's also, we can talk more about this later. Big picture, what's best for college football? SEC left out. I can tell you why. That's the controversy you need. You need America screaming for once it's not the SEC. And 4 other teams get to participate, and it's going to be a non-SEC champion.
Are you cool with the Wolverines being the champion?
I think that's best for the sport moving forward.
Because Michigan's going to be the heavy favorite if the SEC's not in it.
Well, controversy's good too.
Well, this rings a bell in terms of recent events with what we've been hearing from Carissa Thompson, also a longtime sports broadcaster. And she had mentioned on a podcast, she actually said she mentioned it even further back than this, but she reiterated it recently on a podcast that she had a habit when she would be on the sidelines of falsifying information that she would get from coaches or players in order to craft her halftime reports, saying if she wasn't able to actually speak to them, she would just make something up. She later tried to clarify, no, I would just actually take what they would tell me earlier in the game and rework it a little bit, knowing that it probably would have gone in that same direction. Anyways, a lot of people weren't buying it. It was, even if it is true, it's a horribly stupid thing to say out loud. Michelle, when you heard that, what went through your mind, and what kind of damage does this do to the reputations of all the sideline reporters that are out there actually doing their job and making sure all of their information is 100% accurate?
To your first question, what went through my mind? Initially, I looked at it and I thought, for some reason, I think she's not going to pay any kind of substantial price for this. That was my gut reaction. And I thought she probably should. They might want to take her off the air for a couple of weeks just because this is damage control. They didn't see it. Amazon didn't see it that way. Fox didn't see it that way. That's fine. That's totally their prerogative. But I was disappointed. I know Carissa a little bit, a really nice person, but this is not something that you do. And as you said, to say it out loud, I think where she really hurt herself was when she said, I said this earlier and I didn't get fired then, so I'll say it again. I made stuff up. You can't walk that back. You can't recraft that. The fact that she said, I said it before and I didn't get fired, indicates to me that she knew it was not a good idea to say out loud what she had done or even to do what she had done. So for her to come back and say, no, I chose my words incorrectly. Well, wait a minute. You just said I didn't get fired the first time I admitted it, so I probably won't get fired the second time I admit it. You cannot do this. You cannot do this in journalism. You cannot make stuff up. I don't care what the circumstance is. Now, she actually used the phrase, I made things up.
Yeah, she did.
So she used that phrase. So I don't know how you sort of put that toothpaste back in the tube. I feel for her. I know she's going through hell right now, but it's kind of one of those things. It's an unforced error. She brought it on herself. You can't do it. And I would point out that she's on Amazon. The owner of Amazon is Jeff Bezos, who also happens to own the Washington Post, which holds itself up as a newspaper of record, as a bastion of journalism.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I'm just not sure what kind of message that sends to the rest of journalism. And people are so tired, Charlie. People are so tired of people not being accountable for the things that they do and say. And so I think that there should have been some accountability here. But you cannot do that. There's no reason to do this. If you don't have a report at halftime, don't file one. Tell the producer, I got nothing. Let's wait until I got something down here on the field. I got nothing to report for you.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Friday edition is here. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick network. Chad, please tell me you started Dak Prescott last night.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I did. I did indeed. I did not start Jordan Love. That was my other option.
I just recall you asking Michael Fabiano, our next guest.
I didn't blink this week on that one.
There you go.
Yeah, I did not
There you
blink.
go. Even Thursday nights where we normally see some lackluster offense, we finally got some offense in a primetime slot, and it was a fun game last night. Michael Fabiano joins us, fantasy football expert, all thing guru for your fantasy rosters each Friday with us and, of course, with SI. Good to see you, Michael. Hope things are well, man.
Yeah, man, everything's good. What was it, about a week ago today? We were eating turkey, had a little tryptophan nap going on right now, and now we're back at it. And, yeah, we had a great game last night. It was tough as a Cowboys fan to watch that game, but
yeah, I know.
the folks pulled it out. And I got a buddy of mine who is a producer on my SiriusXM show. He started, it's a super flex league, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, and CD Lamb. 4 players. He had 143 points. That's the way to start a fantasy football week.
That is a decent start.
How many teams are, how many players in this? Because if you have the super flex, I mean, you're down to inactives.
And that's why he had to start Geno. Geno's been bad this year. Like last night was Geno 2022. Most of this season has been bad Geno. He had really had only 2 good games before last night, so it was a bit of a surprise, especially against the Cowboys. The defense didn't play all that well, but they hunkered down when they needed to, and the Cowboys pulled out a win. Now, and I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan, so Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, next 4 games, we're going to find out what the Cowboys are made of.
So playoffs, I mean, 6 weeks in the NFL is an eternity. And we got a ways to go before we see the playoff field. But are there, just for fantasy football purposes, playoffs are about to begin, at least in the 16-team league Chad and I are in. We're about to hit that coming up. Are there players that are close to returning to injury or could return to the roster that you would consider stashing away right now where they're just sitting out there as free agents?
The one name would probably be Dallas Goedert. And I don't know if people dropped him or not, but if you're in a league where you don't have an injury designation spot for players who are out, people may have cut him because he was expected to miss several weeks. And I actually grabbed him in a few leagues where I saw people drop him because tight end is so paper thin. I'll wait. I'm fine with it if I don't have another really good tight end on my roster, and a lot of people do not have that. So Dallas Goedert is the players whose names come to mind. You know, we've got other injuries, but the people that I'm thinking of are probably not on the waiver wire. The waiver wire is really thin.
Yes, it is.
Right now, guys. I mean, it is paper thin.
Should I keep Jonathan Taylor on my roster or use that roster spot somewhere else?
No, I'd keep him. They're saying 2 to 3 weeks. So you're saying your playoffs start. Most playoffs don't start until week 15, and it goes 15 through 17.
Yeah, we're in 14, I think. But yes, it's coming up, and I'm just curious if he's worthy of trying to
I'd
play
wait.
it out.
I'd wait on him because, I mean, if you drop him, he's going to get picked up by somebody else. And what happens if it's on the short end of that? He misses this week. He misses week 14. He's back in week 15. Somebody else could be playing Jonathan Taylor against you. I'd hold on to him.
Chad, he's got a couple of names in his starts this week, Michael does, that we've seen frequently week to week with his starting five. Start him and sit him. All right, Michael.
Starting with someone, by the way, who was playing at this time last week on a Friday.
Oh, that's right.
On the list.
That's right.
Tying back to what we were all doing last week at this time, this guy was playing.
And it wasn't very good either. It was Tua Tagovailoa. 7 points. Had maybe almost 8 in some leagues. 2 of his last 3 games have not been great. But, I mean, this is the Commanders. They stink. The Commanders have given up over 20 points to Tommy DeVito. Had to do it. I'm Italian. And Tyrod Taylor. Tua, I'm telling you, the Dolphins may put up 50 on the Commanders. And Tua should put up at least 20 against this defense because they're garbage. So Tua's in my starts this week. Isaiah Pacheco, who I told people to play last week, really good performance. And now he's got Green Bay. That's a positive matchup for Pacheco. Najee Harris. And Najee Harris has been much better the last month or so. Had a good game last week. I think you can play Jalen Warren and Najee against the Cardinals. They've given up over 31 points per game, the running backs, in the last month. So they are primed to get picked by those backs. Brandon Ayuk in what should be a high-scoring game and maybe the game of the year against the 49ers, or the 49ers against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are really bad against perimeter receivers. So Deebo Samuel and Ayuk should eat. And then Michael Pittman Jr., who I feel like I have on this list every week because he's just been so darn consistent. He did not put up a good stat line earlier this season against the Titans. He only had 10 points. I am keeping him in my lineups. Their defense has given up the 3rd most points to perimeter receivers over the last 4 weeks. So keep Michael Pittman Jr. in your lineup. And by the way, Zach Moss, if somebody cut him, he's got to be long gone by now in all competitive leagues. That guy's a virtual must start. The last time he played against Tennessee, he had a big game.
As far as your sits this week, a quarterback that hasn't been turning the football over, they've won the last 2 in Green Bay. Jordan Love's been better, but you're not starting him this week.
He's right outside of my top 12. And that's because, I mean, listen, look at the quarterbacks who are going to – Joe Flacco is going to start this week. I mean, the guy's been on the couch eating Doritos for the last 12 weeks. But Jordan Love against the Chiefs, they're giving up 12.5 points per game to quarterbacks. It's not a great matchup. So you were certainly correct to start Dak over Jordan Love this week. James Conner, I love the revenge game narrative against Pittsburgh and all that. I'm totally down for that kind of thing. But, I mean, Conner's played 29 snaps last week. He hasn't scored double digits since week 3. That's a problem. James Conner's not getting the job done. And these players, you probably got to play them. There's 6 teams off. But beware, temper expectations, and maybe avoid him in DFS. Jerome Ford, he has scored 11.9 points like on the dot, I think, in like 3 straight weeks. It's very strange. So you're probably going to flex him, but the matchup's not great this week against the Rams. They've given up 5 total touchdowns to running backs this year. And speaking of the Rams, Puka Nacua, like what? I mean, for that matter, Cooper Kupp, like what the heck's going on there in Los Angeles? Suddenly our stud wide receivers can't get the job done. They've got the Browns this week. Fewest points allowed to perimeter receivers. It's a really bad matchup for Puka Nacua. I'm in a league where I got to play him. I don't like it. And boy, Cooper Kupp, you want to talk about a guy who went from putting up elite numbers in the 2 games when he came back from the injured list, he was phenomenal. Oh, guy hasn't missed a beat. Since then, single digits every single game. And then finally, Drake London, who had a really good game last week from a fantasy perspective. This week, he's got the Jets. They have allowed the fewest points to perimeter receivers and no touchdowns to receivers who begin their routes out wide. So Drake London is a risk this week. But in that game, Bijan Robinson looks like he is becoming the player we drafted in the first round. His last 2 games, the usage is up, the snaps are up, the points are up. He should dominate the Jets. And for those people who were bummed out that they drafted Bijan after the first half of the season, his schedule is cake the rest of the way. He's going to lead you to a championship.
Of the defenses that have been just plug and play throughout the week, or throughout week to week, is there one matchup-wise where the Browns, Cowboys, they're always going to stay on the roster, right? Is there a defense that's normally just out there weekly that you love matchup-wise this week?
Buccaneers, against the Panthers quarterback situation with Bryce Young. It's been bad. And I don't really give the kid all the blame in the world. The offensive line's not great. They have no weapons. Their top 2 tight ends are hurt this week. Not that they're great, but he has no weapons at all in that passing game outside of, maybe Adam Thielen. He's even been struggling lately. So, the Buccaneers are a good play this week. I just mentioned Atlanta. They're a good play against Tim Boyle and the Jets. On the flip side, the Jets are a good play against Atlanta and Desmond Ridder. Miami's a great play. Miami's been a really good play the last few weeks. They probably aren't going to be out there on the waiver wire. They've got the Commanders who give up a lot of sacks. But for me, if you're looking for that streamer this week, the top 2 are probably Tampa and Atlanta.
So I've got a personal dilemma here with my flex position this week. DeAndre Hopkins at home against the Colts, or Devin Achane, who is listed as questionable right now. They both, on my projections, are both projected the same amount of points this week. Who are you going with?
Achane, I believe, is going to play because, Mike McDaniel said so much today at his presser. I don't trust Nuke Hopkins. I don't. And the last time he played the Colts, he had a really good game. I think he had 22 points. It's a good matchup. As long as there's no reports about Achane being any kind of snap count or anything like that, the Commanders' defense is awful. So here's what I would tell you. If your opponent is significantly better than you and you need to play the high ceiling play, I'd go Achane. If you want to play it safe and avoid potentially Achane pulling up lame and having an issue like he did a couple of weeks ago, I'd play Nuke Hopkins. You always got to look at your opponents. And that also gives you an idea of maybe when you're struggling between 2 players, okay, I should kill this team. I'm going to play it safe. I'll play Hopkins. Or this team's got a lot of studs this week, and maybe I have players on bye. I need a high ceiling play. I'm going to go with Achane. But for me, on the surface, I'm going with Devin Achane.
See, now you got me thinking. So here's another scenario I could go with. I could play Achane over Joe Mixon or Rachaad White and play Nuke Hopkins in the flex position. Are you moving Achane in for either one of those guys?
I don't love Joe Mixon this week. I'm definitely playing Rachaad White's playing Carolina. I mean, that's a great matchup. Joe Mixon scored 8 points in the first game without Joe Burrow. The Jaguars have given up the fewest rushing yards to running backs. The way that running backs have beaten Jacksonville is as pass catchers. And I mean, Joe Mixon's a good pass catcher. He's not Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey, but he's good. But it seems like that's going to be the only way that Mixon has a really good game. So based on the grouping that you just gave me, I would not be opposed to benching Joe Mixon.
And I think 9 backup started games.
I've done it.
Oh, there you go.
Done it.
9 backup started games at quarterback last week. Is it Jamar Chase? Is it someone else that has really dropped based on the fact that the starters are not in there right now?
He certainly has. I mean, he had 12 points last week. I need more than that. I mean, he was my second overall pick in a lot of drafts. I'm going to be kicking myself all offseason if I lose championships or playoff berths because I went with Chase over McCaffrey. And I know, who knew that Joe Burrow was going to get hurt? But I drafted Jamar Chase ahead of Christian McCaffrey everywhere. Unfortunately, to my detriment in some leagues. I'm still doing well, but now I've got Jake Browning throwing the ball to Jamar Chase. T. Higgins looks like he could be back this week. The matchup actually is not awful this week against the Jaguars, but it's certainly Chase. Amari Cooper's taken a big hit without Deshaun Watson. And as I mentioned, Joe Flacco is going to start this week, it looks like, for the Browns. And I am actually kind of looking forward to that as someone who has Amari Cooper because he's done nothing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson under center.
Oh, man, one of the league I'm in where my 2 starters got hurt back-to-back, and now I'm down to Derek Carr or it was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he's gone. So I may have to pick up Flacco as a backup just in case. I don't like any of these QBs.
It's crazy.
I don't even like Derek Carr right now.
You have no reason to.
Yeah,
he hasn't been great
I
in
should,
fantasy.
but I don't. Yeah, I know.
And the Saints are all banged up too. Chris Olave practiced this week, but he's still in the concussion protocol. Rashid Shaheed didn't practice all week. Like Michael Thomas is already on injured reserve. Like they have no wide receivers. They're gonna have to call Joe Horn for crying out loud or Devery Henderson because they've got nothing. That's why I love Taysom Hill this week, and I really like Juwan Johnson if you need to start a tight end because the Saints wide receivers unless Olave can miraculously come back a week after being in the concussion protocol, which that typically does not happen. Like you're looking at A.T. Perry and maybe like Lynn Bowden. It's not going to be good for the Saints.
Yeah, or me. Always great for Michael
Also
Fabiano.
not good for the Saints,
Always
if
great
that's
for the league season, winning a high hit rate, and that's why we love having you on. With very thankful for your time each week, Michael. We appreciate it, man.
All right, guys. Good luck this weekend.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Same
Thanks,
to you.
Michael.
Again, if I were in a league with Michael Fabiano, do you think I would tell him good luck? If he said, "Hey guys, good luck this week," I'd be like, "Same to you," and then he's thinking, "Don't need it."
Well, he says it more in a way like, "Good luck."
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah. You guys are
Not
screwed.
going to be much fun for you this week. Hope you enjoy it.
We have plenty coming up. Clint Stoerner will join us in hour number 2. Kelly in Vegas as well. But, well, there's an example of why the NBA regular season doesn't really matter for significance. Their top star is going to show us why. Straight ahead on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that. Second hour is here. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. This place you jammed throughout the weekend for all the championship games. Everyone, if you're tuned in here, you'll be watching along with us, too. It's going to be a fun evening tonight, and then, of course, all day tomorrow. The average ticket price, the get-in price for the Power 5 conference championship games. Would you... Well, I could run through. You may start with the highest to lowest?
I'm guessing the highest will be in Atlanta.
It is. $533, the get-in price right now for Alabama taking on Georgia, as the Bulldogs, still the most under-discussed, underrated storyline is Georgia's going for a three-peat. $533 for that.
It's also really a testament to their greatness that it is so under-discussed. It's just a given to everyone how great they've been.
It is, but I mean... we just have not seen that, though.
No.
The dynasty of that, we have not seen. It really shows how much Michigan was the shadow over that story. Number 2 surprised me.
Conference USA?
No, Power 5.
Okay. Number 2, ACC?
ACC, $88. That's the drop-off. Number 2 to number 1. $533 to $88 get-in price for the ACC. Big 12's at 3, $71. Big 10, $58. And the Pac-12 at 42.
Big 10 is still in Indianapolis, right? So they play that game?
Yes, it is. But if you add up the other 4, the SEC championships get-in price is twice as much as the other 4 combined for the get-in price.
It's pretty crazy to think that the price is as high as it is.
$42 to watch Oregon, Washington.
Well, for the ACC championship, considering it's in Charlotte.
Yeah.
I was thinking if it's in Florida somewhere with Florida State playing, you'd understand. But that's not a really quick drive from Louisville to Charlotte, and certainly not a quick one from Tallahassee or the state of Florida. So good for that game to have that level of interest. And now SEC fans will claim that because that get-in price, you can't leave an SEC team out. You can't do it. Guys, it was $500 get-in price for this championship game.
I can watch Oregon or Washington for $42.
Telling me you're going to leave someone out of this because of that? Come on.
We can watch Texas for a little over $50 right now.
Yeah.
How
they're
dare
out.
you?
They're out. The Longhorns are not deserving.
Yeah.
I don't care that they won by double digits in Tuscaloosa. It cost me $30 to get in their championship game. That is not a program worthy of a playoff spot.
If again, I agree with what you said, Chad, about the deserving factor. Earning it, the resume, all that, and it doesn't match up with the best teams. If ESPN truly maneuvered this, Bama and Georgia would be in, right?
Yep.
If, again, Bama wins, who would be left out of these brands? Texas is going to be in.
Texas is in.
And Michigan.
In what? Under what circumstances?
I'm just thinking about the brands for ESPN. Again, having the rights and owning the college football playoff the way they do. And how they would try to stack this. Because they would want the Big 12's final season with Texas. And just the brand of Longhorn football.
Yeah, look, if we got into just what do they want?
Florida State's out.
Yeah.
Even though the ACC has their contract, Florida State's out.
I really think that you're going to get mammoth ratings if there's not an SEC team in it.
Really?
I really do. I think it's only going to help the future health of the whole sport nationally, too, if that were to happen, because it's not as if the SEC is just going to go into a hole and die. They're coming back even stronger, and then they're going to feel slighted. Everyone in the South is going to feel slighted if not one SEC team is in.
I just think the mammoth ratings would be Michigan against the SEC.
I think Michigan against anyone is going to do well.
But I'm saying
because of the controversy around them also.
The Goliath, though, would be, is Michigan going to prove it after not being able to do it in back-to-back years in the playoff after doing it against the Big Ten?
I feel like 2013 when Florida State ended up winning it all with Jameis Winston.
Yes.
I want to say that semi where it was Jameis Winston versus Marcus Mariota. Florida State and Oregon. That did really, really well. And then Florida State beat Auburn in the national championship game that year. But I'm trying to think of how would Florida State rate with a backup quarterback, probably not as well as an Alabama or Georgia, right? So,
yeah.
Again, just look at this from television perspective. The worst team involved is Washington. Even Oregon has more national cachet.
You're right.
So that's the worst one involved. That's the one I want to see in.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the same teams. Like, there to me is a fatigue factor of every year. We're talking Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama,
get that
Georgia.
Next year, though. We get that next year. We do. This year, I want to see the story. This has been a pretty chalk season. And I want to see Michigan have to prove it. I want to, if Oregon or Washington, I think Washington can play with anybody. Oregon can too. I want to see them have to prove it against the teams that are always there.
Yeah.
Again, that's just my no. I don't have a dog in the hunt here in the fight. I want to see Oregon against Bama or Georgia, not Oregon against Florida State. That's where I'm coming from on it. But I agree that an unbeaten ACC champ should be in the college football playoff.
I'm trying to make sure I'm not leaving anything out here. So we're going past head-to-head to just resumes.
That's right.
So
and we're not even mentioning Ohio State.
Let's talk again about Alabama wins. All the other undefeateds win the championship. So those 3 undefeateds are in. Then the decision comes down to Alabama or Texas, a one-loss conference champion. In that scenario, Alabama would have a win over number 1 in America on a neutral site against Georgia, right? Outside of that, Hutton, they will have beaten number 11 Ole Miss, number 13 LSU, and number 21 Tennessee, all at home. Nothing else away from Tuscaloosa. Okay, Texas, on the other hand, will have a win over number 18 Oklahoma State on a neutral site, which would be in the Big 12 championship. The win at number 8 Alabama, the head-to-head. They would have
which does not happen at home for against Saban.
Right. I'm trying to I'm making sure I'm not leaving anything else out. And a win over number 25 Kansas State.
And then the wins, but then the loss to.
Have they played Oklahoma State already too? Would this be a second win over Oklahoma State?
I need
to go back and double check. I don't think they've played. But those would be the 3 wins. So again, I still don't see mathematically how you're just doing backflips over Alabama's strength of wins as much as Texas, other than, yes, they would have just knocked off Georgia in the SEC championship game, which is very valuable.
Well, it just comes back
but
to...
But it's not enough. I'm getting back to the point that...
The committee's already telling us where they're ranked.
None of that is enough to erase the head-to-head game we saw in Tuscaloosa.
And that head-to-head helps Texas right now, where they're ranked.
Every single tiebreak scenario that I've been a part of my entire life, playing or watching sports, typically begins with the first tiebreaker being head-to-head. So I do want to keep that in mind with these teams that we're comparing. If there's a head-to-head, that should outweigh others. Now, if it's just head-to-head and there's something crazy going on with the resume where you've got, 5 top 10 wins or something that's way better than the other team, then you weight that against each other. But head-to-head's got to matter here. Texas should be the team that's in, not Alabama.
And I agree. I think they are very deserving, because I think that the argument would be, Alabama just got that's the best win of the year. Well, if that's true on the neutral site, Texas went to Tuscaloosa and beat the team that just had the win of the year.
Now, none of this may end up mattering, because I'm also looking around and seeing Florida State possibly playing with a third-string quarterback now.
Right.
Maybe Louisville gets them, and they're out of the mix. And then it makes way for some of these other teams. Oregon is almost a double-digit favorite tonight against Washington.
There is something to be thankful for today. And just realizing, if Iowa would have scored 13 points against Minnesota, they'd be a one-loss team. And if they were to shock everyone and beat Michigan,
they'd be in the playoff.
They would be a Big Ten champ with one loss in the college football playoff.
Iowa has the most disgusting team to win 10 games in the history of college football. I think you'd have to go back to before the war to find a team that has been this bad offensively that has won 10 games. Now, you can look at that and say it's a miracle, and this team should be celebrated for this offense, and they won 10 games. That defense should absolutely be celebrated. They also played in one of the most miserable divisions in the history of Power 5 football in the Big Ten West. But I'm going to save it for the top 10 college games, but I've got some stats on
can't
Iowa.
wait.
That's just a couple of them that are just mind-blowing. How bad it's been for a team that's won 10 games. And they are a close loss against Minnesota away from this being a win and in game to the college football playoff. Remarkable. Remarkable job.
The NBA lost the luster a while back, right? A while back.
Since Michael Jordan retired.
Sure. Well, yeah.
They had some bright spots after that. It's not been all
Kobe
bad.
and Shaq and that, the whole era. And LeBron's early years, whatever.
Early Warriors was a fun one to follow.
That's where we start with our headlines today with LeBron James considering and will just skip a Lakers game, take the day off, I guess, if Bronny James is going to make his college debut on the same evening. Now, for those that missed the headline, Bronny James with the cardiac arrest, a little more than 4 months ago, he's back at practice and will be back playing and will make a debut in college basketball for USC sometime soon. And LeBron is saying, hey, I'm looking forward to his first game. I've already told my teammates that if they're playing on the same day we're playing, I'm going to go catch them the next game. Family over everything. The perfect scenario is that he's opening on a night where where the Lakers don't have a game, and he's opening in Los Angeles at home for USC. But this goes to two things that I think of. Number one, they have the load management rules now in play for the NBA. So you know the floor of games that you need to play in to qualify for all the awards and everything else, whatever. This goes to the insignificance of the NBA regular season. And Chad, it points to the fact that he's willing just to, oh, you know what? I'm taking a sick day. I'm gonna go watch my son play. And I also think that the health issue here is also going to help the perception of what he's doing with the debut for Bronny, compared to it's just his debut in college basketball.
Well, the health thing, fine. All right, I get part of that, but he's also been around him, as he's recovering. He's been practicing, and now he's going to be playing
right.
in a game.
He's been in LA. You're right.
LeBron James makes $49 million this season. Okay, he just signed a 2-year, $99+ million contract. $99 million of that, which is guaranteed money. If it does not matter to them, why should I care? This is my issue with the NBA. I don't know what the stakes really are. If LeBron James is going to leave to go watch his son play a basketball game and not play under a $49 million contract for the Los Angeles Lakers, and everyone's just supposed to say, okay, great, fine, do whatever you want. Load management was a thing a year ago. This is just a creative way to involve load management and take a night off. Then, look, if the team is going to allow him to do it, fine, great for him. But why should anyone care if it doesn't really matter to them? We loved Ohio State, Michigan because the stakes were so incredibly high. Stakes matter in sports, and I just don't know what the stakes are if it's just, hey, pick up and go watch your son play and don't go to work. When work involves, by the way, cashing a $49 million paycheck for the season.
I don't
Shouldn't
disagree.
those 82 dates matter?
Well, I think so.
Unless you're injured or sick,
there's still a way. There's still a way to make all this work where he's not going to miss any games. I agree with the family over everything, family over work.
Yeah,
and
son's
all that.
in the hospital or ill or all of that. Yes,
so
go be with your family. But
USC's next 2 home games, I think, do conflict with the schedule. I would not put it past USC to schedule his debut on an off day for the Lakers. After their next 2 home games for the Lakers, they are on the road. They play against Auburn. USC does. They play against Auburn, and then is it Alabama State or one of the schools there in Alabama? It's not the University of Alabama. And those are both days where the Lakers don't play. So I won't put it past the debut to be scheduled where he's there and the eyeballs are on the product, where you've got LeBron in attendance, and it's 1 game for USC before Bronny plays. That'll be the televised game where LeBron's there before the Lakers play again.
Yeah, they've got coming up Gonzaga, big one. Long Beach State, at Auburn, at Alabama State.
Okay.
Is the one you're
and
mentioning.
Those two in Alabama are off days for the Lakers.
Yeah, and then they're into Pac-12 play. After that, it's at Oregon to open Pac-12 play.
And the other tidbit on the rule, because they put the floor on how many games you can miss for load management. You can't intentionally sit out a nationally televised game on ABC if you're not injured. And I don't believe you can have back-to-back games where you're just resting on the road. I think that's in there. And if it's not, it's encouraged that you don't. But if one of these games is the ABC Sunday game or whatever, Chad, that's a fine coming to the organization and I guess to him. I guarantee that's not going to happen. They would work around this.
Yeah,
and family over everything. He can say all this, and that's great because I agree with him. But he can also not miss a game, and he wins both, and you have LeBron and Bronny at the USC game, potentially on the road. Imagine LeBron at Alabama State for his son's college debut.
Yeah,
at Alabama State, and that would be televised.
Oh, yeah. I just – how much does it matter in the NBA? And I have a hard time getting an emotional attachment to a sport that was trumpeting load management, and then this happens. You're going to not play the game to go watch your son play in his debut, but you're not going to be there for the rest of the game. I just – whatever.
Yeah.
If you're emotionally attached to the NBA or NBA team, more power to you.
Clint Stoerner joins us. We preview the championship games and what's going on at Arkansas with the former Razorback.
This is a broader issue on professional versus amateur and our college athletes amateur right now. Look, the Chicago Bears yesterday under Matt Eberflus just took a big dump in the bed because Matt Eberflus and his Tampa 2 defense went soft. Next thing you know, Jared Goff picked him apart and Dan Campbell lost his ever-loving mind. That kind of deal. All right, here's the thing though. When you're in college and you're being paid, guess what? Do you have an obligation? Do you have an obligation to speak to the media after a big game? Now, look, I understand if I'm the 6-team center. No, of course not. But when you're the quarterback of USC, fight on, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Here's the deal. USC quarterback is as high profile, particularly when you've just won the Heisman. And now all of a sudden you get your brains beat out for not the first, not the second, but the third straight time. Third straight time you get your brains beat out by your rival, USC. You've already cried on the sidelines. You've had a horrible year. Apparently your team don't like you. They look like a dismantled mess. But you're a college athlete that's now making millions. Let me ask you guys. Are you to be treated like a pro? Are you to say, hey, look, this is just a student athlete. This is just a college kid. So Ian Rappaport on the rap sheet put this tweet out. And I'm curious about this. This fascinates me. Like, I'm tired of Caleb Williams. I've had enough of Caleb Williams. But Ian Rappaport made the connection from Joe Burrow speaking to the media when you are the face of a franchise. And he said this, Joe Burrow learned his season was over on Friday, understood his responsibility, went out, held a press conference. The job of a quarterback and the face of the franchise. Now, Ryan Cartier he's a USC guy. Caleb Williams has elected not to speak to the media after the loss to USC, a USC spokesman said. Now, let me go. See, I understand one is a professional athlete, all right? But isn't the other a professional athlete too? I mean, isn't Caleb Williams a professional athlete? This is where I've always said you got to be a little bit careful here. You do. You got to be a little bit careful. The deal is simple. You're being paid. You're a professional. You want to be an employee. As an employee, you have an obligation. You're the face of football going into the season. Now, you're not now. It's been a disappointing season. You've cried to your mama. You want to hug with your dogs. But, ladies and gentlemen, he's never going to suit up in a USC uniform again. So as soon as that is over, is he a professional? I don't know, but it's a damn interesting thing to me. It really and truly is. It is a damn interesting thing because we want to treat these guys like kids. We do. We want to treat them like children. You know, when they get criticized, we want to say, well, they're just student athletes. You know what I mean? They're just student athletes. Okay, they're just student athletes. But the truth of the matter is they're paid employees. Maybe not the employee part, but they are paid. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like Caleb Williams is somebody you want on your team? Now, make no mistake. The measurables are going to be there, and he's going to be the first pick in the draft.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton with our rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, our next guest, as we jump in to preview some of the championship weekend games for college football and get some insight on Arkansas and Bobby Petrino being back, as well as what's going on with Sam Pittman. It may haunt some fans for Arkansas fans back in the day against Tennessee. I know you're one of those who's very proud of our next guest.
Yeah, I don't think he likes to talk about it.
Yeah, well, we've had him on before, though.
We've done that before. I was going to introduce him as former Nashville Cat, Clint Stoerner, because I feel like no one ever says anything about his time with the Nashville Cats.
Clint Stoerner joins us, former Arkansas Razorback quarterback. Clint, last time we had you on, you were great when talking about it. We won't bring up the bad memories there, but anytime Clint Stoerner is mentioned, it's Nashville Cats, and it's, of course, SEC football.
Well, now it's radio extraordinaire on John McClain's station.
That's it.
610 Sports Radio there in Houston, where you're on 2 to 6 p.m. every day, Clint.
Hey, look, fellas, I'll take it all, man. Bring the Tennessee Vol, the Arkansas, the 1998, 1999. I love my time with the Cats, man. It was absolutely tremendous. The city of Nashville is second to none for me, man. So, hey, bring it all, man. I'm in the media game. As y'all know, if you're in this game, you can't hide. So,
Amen.
We can talk about it all, brother. I'm game.
Well, we could absolutely join us here. We'll grab a beer, moonshine with you next time you're in Nashville. Hey,
come on.
Hey, Bobby Petrino's back. Whenever he's out at Arkansas, compared to the way the response has been now that he's the offensive coordinator calling play, what's been the response from Arkansas and the fan base?
Look, I think the response has been overall positive, man. I mean, you got to take into account where the program was with Sam Pittman. I mean, they got skull-drugged by Auburn and in Missouri. They got beat by Mississippi State's backup quarterback and a coach that got fired a week later. All of that at home, one of them on homecoming. And so the program was in a really, really bad spot. And Sam Pittman, his job was in jeopardy ultimately. He had to make a grand slam hire. And I didn't know how he was going to do it. I didn't know who he was going to go get. It wasn't going to be an up-and-comer. And so it shocked me that he got Bobby Petrino. But once I heard the news, guys, I think the fan base, a lot of the fan bases like I am, I think it's a grand slam hire for multiple reasons. I'm sure we'll get into those. But this is a huge hire for Sam Pittman, not only for his own job security, but look, for the future of Arkansas football.
And let's go back a little bit on that, Clint. What was your reaction when you found out that Sam Pittman was staying? Because I think a lot of people maybe assumed that Arkansas was going to be one of those SEC programs looking for a new coach. What was your reaction when you got that news?
I didn't know how Sam Pittman was going to manage to keep his job, if I'm being completely honest. It's when you're not necessarily an offensive-minded or defensive-minded head coach, you're not a play caller. You're more of a CEO overseeing things, and all the guys that he had overseen, it had been a really rough year. And I don't know, it appeared that he had lost the locker room. It appeared that all of the guys that were playing against Missouri with all the fighting, the pushing after the whistle, a lot of the way the guys responded when they were getting beat embarrassingly the last month of the season. I didn't think there was any way he was going to keep his job. I thought he'd lost the locker room. And anytime Arkansas is that close to Vanderbilt in the rankings, no offense to all my Nashville folks, but when you're that close to Vanderbilt in the rankings, it's going to be hard to keep a job. So I thought Sam Pittman had done enough to be replaced.
Is there any scenario where Sam Pittman gets fired this year or after this next year and Bobby Petrino is an option for Arkansas to be elevated? Or is this just more of a, let's hire Bobby Petrino and see if he can save Sam Pittman's job, but if he can't, everybody there at Arkansas is out and you're going to a new regime?
Well, look, I think you got to take into consideration who Arkansas is. I think Hunter Yurachek, Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino, I think they are very aware that Arkansas is ultimately a middle-of-the-pack, 8-win football team. That's the expectations. Now, the fan base may expect a little bit more, but I think that's the realistic expectation. And if Bobby Petrino puts a solid enough offense on the field year one, I believe they get to 8. If not, they get to 7. I think they get there. And with that being said, there's no way that not after 1 year, there's no way that Hunter Yurachek would move on from Sam Pittman and hire Bobby Petrino. Now you look, I think Bobby Petrino's got a 3-year deal. 3 years into this thing, if the offense is rocking and rolling, the defense has got a lot of turnover and not improving, then I could see Bobby Petrino possibly being in that conversation. But I don't think after 1 year, no.
And Clint, speaking of turnover, a lot of turnover with quarterback all over the country, right?
Yeah.
With the transfer portal, and Arkansas not immune to it with KJ Jefferson announcing his intention to enter the transfer portal. Is it as simple as go find a guy that fits with Bobby Petrino and what he wants to do now for Arkansas? What do you think about the outlook at quarterback and sort of your reaction to this new era where quarterbacks are one and done left and right all over the place in college football?
Yeah. Well, I think overall, we talked about this on our show yesterday here in Houston, man. These quarterbacks that are anywhere from $1 million to $2 million quarterbacks, that blows my mind. Now, if you're a program, let's take A&M, for instance, where all the stars are aligned and you've got talent to win compete with Alabamas and Georgias, and then you've also got a coach that's hired from somewhere where like Riley Leonard was the quarterback. Now, he may be worth $1 million, but I don't think just generally speaking that good college quarterbacks are worth $1 million or $2 million for any program. So I love players getting paid. Absolutely love players getting paid. But I think the $1 million to $2 million for a quarterback across the country is crazy talk. Now you look at Arkansas, and it's not just as easy as go find a guy that fits with Bobby Petrino. While it's easy to find a guy that fits with Bobby Petrino, he's had a ton of success with guys that are built like Ryan Mallett, all the way to guys that are built like Lamar Jackson. So I think Bobby can make dang near any style quarterback work if he can spin it around the park. But the dynamic is, what do you do with KJ Jefferson? What does KJ Jefferson want to do? Is he interested in a rebuild at Arkansas? Does he want to go somewhere, make $1 million+ and hopefully get in a spot where he can have a chance to win a national championship? The quarterback dynamic at Arkansas right now is, while it's gonna all unfold in the next month, it's very interesting right now.
But Stoerner, our guest, KJ Jefferson, the quarterback, he's being linked to a couple of other SEC programs. I know Auburn's been thrown in the mix. You mentioned the different dynamic quarterbacks that Petrino has coached, Clint. If KJ Jefferson is not at Arkansas, do you think he's a version of what we've seen from Bo Nix, where he leaves and does better somewhere else? Or is he, with Petrino, missing a great opportunity? And by the way, I believe he's 22. Bo Nix is 23. It's a very similar setup.
Yeah. I don't think KJ Jefferson is as elite a passer of the football as Bo Nix in some of the higher known, better known college quarterbacks right now. The higher known that when you're talking about Heisman Trophy caliber guys, I just don't think KJ Jefferson spins it that well. He's not a natural passer of the football. KJ Jefferson has a ton of success when he's in that run first, downhill, Kendall Briles type of offense, Gus Malzahn type of offense. I think that's where KJ's at right now. Does he go somewhere where he can hopefully win a national title and the offensive coordinator is going to play to his strengths, or does he go somewhere like Arkansas, stay at Arkansas or somewhere else and try to develop into what the NFL is looking for? KJ Jefferson is in a really, really strange place, because what you can't afford to do is have another season like you had this year at Arkansas. Then you're completely off the radar, right? If he goes somewhere and he's a true dual threat guy that maybe has some holes in his game, then the NFL will entertain it. But boy, if you've got holes in your game and you're not a winning quarterback, the NFL is not going to be interested. So we'll see what KJ does. I think it's one of the more interesting quarterback situations in all of college football.
You know, when I think of NIL, immediately it's like word association. The first school I think about is Texas A&M, you know, and then maybe I think about Tennessee and some others. But obviously the major programs, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, they all have great NIL collectives and programs in place as well. When I think Arkansas, I do think money. I think Tyson. I think Walmart. I think Jerry Jones, right? So where is Arkansas in terms of NIL and support when it comes to paying players name, image, likeness?
Well, this is one of the things that I'm proud of how Sam Pittman in Arkansas handled it while it was going on, when it was new to everybody. But in hindsight, you look back at it and kind of how things have unfolded, and you look at A&M. I think it was $30 million or something that they budgeted for NIL year one. That number may not be spot on, but it was something in that range. And Arkansas is just announcing that they're starting this collective and really starting to push their collective. So they're way behind the rest of the country as it pertains to NIL. And I just don't know that Arkansas shouldn't be one of the teams that's on the cutting edge, because it would be a huge advantage, right, guys? You talk about NIL right after we talked about KJ Jefferson, and I think this is the case with a lot of teams in the country. Is that quarterback, when you pay a guy with the big monies in NIL, is that quarterback going to take you to the next level and give you a chance to win a conference title or win a national championship? If not, I don't know how you pay that guy that kind of money. So again, going back to KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, it's one of those where is that money better spent, better invested in offensive line or defensive line, where Arkansas struggles year in, year out. So it is a very interesting dynamic in terms of the NIL. And you mentioned JB Hunt, Tyson, Walmart. Arkansas should be, even though they got started late, Arkansas should be, guys, they should be one of the more well-supported NIL collectives in the country, if we're being completely honest. So while they got a little late jump, hopefully they'll catch up, and the big names that we both just thrown around will be in the mix.
Been plenty of championship games to preview with you. We can do it and sum it up with tonight and tomorrow with this. When we're back on Monday doing our shows, what's the college football playoff look like? Which four are in?
Wow, man, your guess is as good as mine. I think the beautiful thing this year, guys, is that really all four conference championship games actually matter. You have to win or you're not in, right? You add to that, you look at the Florida State situation with their quarterback, man. If he doesn't go down, they win the ACC, they're a lock to get in. But right now, you look at it with their backup quarterback. If they go into this championship game against Louisville, and they've got to protect their quarterback with the run game, and it's obvious to all of us watching that they're scared to throw the football. I don't know how you put them in the college football playoff. Now, I also don't know how you keep an undefeated conference champion, Power 5 champion, out of the college football playoffs. You look at Texas. Can Texas go beat Oklahoma State and then be that 14 that can jump in there? I mean, I don't know what it ends up looking like, guys, but I'll tell you who I think the best four football teams are in college football right now. I think you got Georgia. I'm going with Oregon over Washington. Okay. And then obviously, depending on, I've been with Florida State all year long. I'm gonna ride Florida State, and then I think Texas gets in.
Houston's a huge market, obviously, and I'm thinking in terms of college football, it's probably, Texas and A&M are right there, 1 and 2, one or the other in terms of interest. Yeah. I'm curious where Houston Cougar football ranks and how that job is viewed in the city of Houston, because people I talk to in college football, Clint, would say that's the program I'd watch when they entered the Big 12 as one, if they get it right with their support in terms of money from Fertitta, and their recruiting base, they could be really good in the Big 12. Do you see it that way? And what direction should they go with this hire?
And look, I think the Big 12 is there for the taking. I mean, before Oregon announced where they were headed, we had a lot of conversations about where does Oregon go. And I thought, hey, man, they should be fighting tooth and nail to get into the Big 12, because, number one, the Big 12 is not going anywhere. And if you want to have an easy path to the college football playoff every year, the easiest path, I guess, path of least resistance, it's going to be the Big 12. So to answer your question, I think the Big 12 is really there for the taking once Oklahoma and Texas leave. And U of H, while it's going to be a few years, I think U of H does, and I think it's realistic. I think they will be competitive when they get this hire. I think it's going to end up being Willie Fritz is the most, I guess recently Willie Fritz is the one that everybody's talking about. I think if he gets in there, you give him 2 or 3 years, I think he'll be competitive in the Big 12. It's there for the taking, boys. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how that landscape unfolds here.
Clint, about a minute left here, maybe a loaded question you could spend an hour on. If Michigan wins the national title, how are you going to remember that team?
Man, look, it's Michigan's a tough one for me. I'll be honest with you. The Big Ten is a tough one for me, boys. But I know you're referring to the sign stealing scandal. And I don't. For me personally, it doesn't tarnish the championship. Look, but you're talking to a guy that's an Astros fan. So
hey, it's a mixed reaction for sure.
Sure. Well, look, you got to police these guys, man. You can't let the adults in the equation, screw things up in college football even more so than they already have, obviously. But when you look at what kind of true advantage it actually was for whatever period of time it was going on, I just don't think it's to the point where the players deserve to have a national championship tarnished or a Big Ten championship tarnished. So I stopped the buck with Jim Harbaugh before I get to tarnishing championships and disciplining players or holding players accountable to any degree.
Clint Stoerner, always great to catch up with you again, man, and hope things are well. Thank you for the time. Enjoy all the games, and hopefully we'll catch up soon, man.
Hey, man, look forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys.
There's Clint Stoerner, Sports Radio 610, and much more with his college football analysis. Chad
does a great job. Big deal there in Houston.
Chad does a great job with his top games of the week. We'll preview championship games and more, all coming up on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow.
Well, this rings a bell in terms of recent events with what we've been hearing from Charissa Thompson, also a longtime sports broadcaster. And she had mentioned on a podcast, she actually said she mentioned it even further back than this, but she reiterated it recently on a podcast that she had a habit when she would be on the sidelines of falsifying information that she would get from coaches or players in order to craft her halftime reports, saying if she wasn't able to actually speak to them, she would just make something up. She later tried to clarify, no, I would just actually take what they would tell me earlier in the game and rework it a little bit, knowing that it probably would have gone in that same direction. Anyways, a lot of people weren't buying it. It was, even if it is true, it's a horribly stupid thing to say out loud. Michelle, when you heard that, what went through your mind, and what kind of damage does this do to the reputations of all the sideline reporters that are out there actually doing their job and making sure all of their information is 100% accurate?
To your first question, what went through my mind? Initially, I looked at it and I thought, for some reason, I think she's not going to pay any kind of substantial price for this. That was my gut reaction. And I thought she probably should. They might want to take her off the air for a couple of weeks just because this is damage control. They didn't see it. Amazon didn't see it that way. Fox didn't see it that way. That's fine. That's totally their prerogative. But I was disappointed. I know Charissa a little bit, a really nice person, but this is not something that you do. And as you said, to say it out loud, I think where she really hurt herself was when she said, I said this earlier and I didn't get fired then, so I'll say it again. I made stuff up. You can't walk that back. You can't recraft that. The fact that she said, I said it before and I didn't get fired, indicates to me that she knew it was not a good idea to say out loud what she had done or even to do what she had done. So for her to come back and say, no, I chose my words incorrectly. Well, wait a minute. You just said I didn't get fired the first time I admitted it, so I probably won't get fired the second time I admit it. You cannot do this. You cannot do this in journalism. You cannot make stuff up. I don't care what the circumstance is. Now, she actually used the phrase, I made things up.
Yeah, she did.
So she used that phrase. So I don't know how you sort of put that toothpaste back in the tube. I feel for her. I know she's going through hell right now, but it's kind of one of those things. It's an unforced error. She brought it on herself. You can't do it. And I would point out that she's on Amazon. the owner of Amazon is Jeff Bezos, who also happens to own the Washington Post, which holds itself up as a newspaper of record, as a bastion of journalism.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I'm just not sure what kind of message that sends to the rest of journalism. And people are so tired, Charlie. People are so tired of people not being accountable for the things that they do and say. And so I think that there should have been some accountability here. But you cannot do that. There's no reason to do this. If you don't have a report at halftime, don't file one. Tell the producer, I got nothing. Let's wait until I got something down here on the field. I got nothing to report for you.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick Network. Chad, we got some championship games in college football to not just preview today, but also know how to bet, know how to win some money. And we need to make up ground for what we've done in previous weeks. Not because of
you mean
what
like
our guest
actually
is.
win?
Yeah,
one
actually
time?
follow what Kelly in Vegas is about to
I would
tell
just
us.
like to win something. Anything. One time. Just one win. That's all I need. I need a win is what I need. More than anything else. Kelly can help with that.
Absolutely she can. OutKick host with The Fade. You can check her out with Clay on The Fade. And that's where the advice really comes in. Not just there, but also here. Kelly, good to see you. Hope things are well.
Hey, what's up, guys? That's how I feel in the NFL this week. 3-1 last week in college football. Great.
Yes.
NFL, not great.
You've been
great
on a
at
roll,
all.
though, recently. Have you not?
It's been better than
I remember the wins.
expected. I remember the wins, too. College football has been really good to me. NFL, man, I swear, every year I say, you know what? I'm going to keep it light. I'm going to play just a few games. And next thing I know, it's Thanksgiving. I've got 3 bets here, and then I got 3 bets on Sunday. That's not what I do. You got to show some discipline. But it was Thanksgiving, my birthday weekend. I got a little out of control and thought it was a good idea. And I got smacked in the mouth by the bookmakers.
Chad and I both lost the Lions play last week on Thanksgiving. It was bad.
It was a rough turkey day for the Lions. Really rough.
Tell us which of the two of us will have the rough day with our bet here. Chad, I want you to lead off because I think Kelly's going to side with you.
Oh, I don't think so.
I think the majority opinion would go against me and what I'm going to do this weekend.
Yeah, the dude that was just clamoring for a win, saying all I need in life is one win, she's probably not going to side with me. But possible third-string quarterback for Florida State in the ACC championship game. A defense that's good, led by Jared Verse. 2 running games that are pretty good. Louisville's offense, hit or miss throughout the season. Jeff Brom, very good offensive coach, though. I'm going to go under in that game. I'm not confident about what's going to happen. Right now, Florida State down to a 1.5-point favorite. But the under 46.5, I think this is a low-scoring game that I think Florida State wins, but I'm going under in the ACC championship game.
Kelly, I am taking Bama straight up to beat Georgia in the SEC title on Saturday. No one's really discussing the Tide, and no one's really discussing Georgia going for a three-peat. And I love the way that Saban has continued to progress with the talent on his roster, and I like the way Milroe's been playing. I like kind of the swagger that the Tide have versus where they were in September. And they can win close games. I obviously think it's going to be close, and I think Alabama wins the SEC championship. And I think we have a little bit of chaos in the whole sorting of the college football playoff this weekend.
Yeah, I love it. Nick Saban as an underdog, 15-9 versus undefeated teams in his lifetime as a head coach. So I'm with you. I took the 6 with Bama. I actually am going to sprinkle a little bit on that money line. This is so reminiscent of the 2021 SEC Championship game. The whole world was on Georgia, and I was going, why aren't we taking Nick Saban as an underdog? I think that's going to be the case here. I think Bama's going to screw a little things up, but probably more than anything, 2 SEC teams are going to get in the championship game. Let's go back to Chad's play because I don't dislike the under.
Oh,
I'm not going to.
She can't say she likes it, though.
Finally.
She didn't say she likes it.
This is the closest to a compliment Kelly's ever going to pay anything that I've ever done in life, is I don't dislike it. But, go ahead, Kelly. But, what is it?
Here's my one caveat. I actually do think that Rodemaker is going to be the starting quarterback for the Noles. He practiced the last 2 days. If he's got a concussion,
well, it was limited though, right? It was limited, they said.
Well, let's be honest here. This is Mike Norvell playing the hand he's dealt. I actually don't hate him for being very vague, but living in Florida now, I get really great information either out of Tallahassee or Gainesville.
Love it.
And I know that there's some conflicting reports, but I trust my guy. He thinks it's all a little rumor mill to play into an advantage here. So if you like the Noles, I think that they're actually probably worth a play here at 1.5. Initially in the week, I liked Louisville. If you remember, I bet against both these teams last week. I was on Kentucky and I was on Florida. So I thought, hey, look, I might be on Jeff Brom here, but we've seen what he does in big games. And that is drop a big fat L. I cannot trust him here. And I have, for one, been let's just put it this way. I've not been very nice about Mike Norvell and some of his shortcomings over the last couple of years. I saw this team in person several times, and I thought he's never going to do it. And this year, he's got the defense. Unfortunately, he had the quarterback. I think the Noles are going to be able to squeak out a win here, but I think it is going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. It could be, let's call it 21-20 final, shock the world, and get the win and get into the college football playoff.
So you're taking, to translate here, you're taking both of our picks? You think both could hit? Which one do you like more than the other?
I'm taking money line, by the way. I'm taking money line, though. I'm not taking the 6.
Yes, I will be on Alabama money line. I think they're absolutely worth a small sprinkle. Me personally, I'll have 3 units on Alabama, a half unit on the money line. That's how I like to break it up when I bet my dogs. Because sometimes I can get a little out of control on the money line. I get addicted to that plus money. And so it's my disciplinary ways to myself to not go off the rails too much. As I mentioned, I did on Sunday. So 3 units, Alabama, plus 6. I'm going to take some of the plus 185, plus 190.
Kelly, thank you for liking my bet also. Not picking it, but at least being okay with it.
I actually think
I need any small win I can get.
Talk me into it.
Well, good. Let's all bet that. Let's all win.
Kelly Stewart with us. Kelly in Vegas. I get a sprinkle. Chad is not disliked today.
I get
based on the phrasing.
I get like 1 salt pellet.
Yeah.
If you get the sprinkle, I get 1 salt pellet thrown on my under.
Let's hit some other games that you like. And Troy and App State is where you're starting of the championship matchups, where Troy currently favored by 5.5.
This one I bet early in the week. I missed the 7. I did take the 6.5. This was almost my best bet this weekend. App State has been awesome as an underdog. We have seen this team 12-1-1 against the spread in their last 14 games as a dog. How can I not keep riding this team? I bet them versus JMU. I was kicking myself. As you know, there was a prominent party that day at James Madison. And I said, all right, they're not going to lose with all the lights, all the cameras, but I'll take the double digits. So I took the 10.5, lose outright. And I am still kicking myself, so I'm not kicking myself anymore. I think App State is going to give Troy a hell of a fight. I watched this Troy team a couple times this year, most notably because my Kansas State Wildcats played them week 2. And I said, okay, what is Troy good at? Troy is good at hitting those deep balls against weak defensive backs, but that's ultimately the way they're going to win this game. I do think it's going to come down to the wire. I do think App State is also worth a sprinkle.
We spent a lot of time over the week discussing if Texas wins the Big 12, what happens if Bama upsets, and where else. Texas and Oklahoma State, how are you playing this game?
Well, I mentioned Nick Saban as an underdog. You know who's better as an underdog? Well, his name's Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy, 22-8, straight up. That is incredible. No wonder I love Mike Gundy so much. And not only is he a great guy, love to hear him whenever he's on air, he is one of my favorites. And the last time I bet on this team was against Oklahoma. I said, you don't need the points, take the money line. And that is what they do. Are they going to be able to upset Texas? I have my concerns here, but this is not a play against Texas, but keep an eye. If the Cowboys are down double digits at half, I'm taking them second half. Texas is not a team that is built to keep their foot on the throttle. I think this is going to be an Ollie Gordon show. Even though Texas has shown that they can stop the run at times, they're going to have to make the Cowboys one-dimensional. I'm not sure they can do that. This team is already reading their press clippings about how they're somehow going to get in the college football playoff. I got news for them. Even if Alabama does upset Georgia, which I think they might, Texas is still not getting into the college football playoff.
14.5 right now for Texas, laying those points. Chad, Gundy, she agrees with Gundy, loves Gundy. Gundy, who uses the SEC to get raises at Oklahoma State, will then be the champion of the Big 12 as Texas leaves for the SEC.
Are you pro-mullet, anti-mullet on Gundy?
Oh, I'm always pro-mullet. The team, whenever you're about to watch a game and they zoom in on the guy with the mullet, just bet that team they're going to win by 100. It's been a joke of mine for a long time.
It also looks like a well-conditioned mullet, like definitely conditioner in that mullet when he had it. No doubt about it.
Listen, I think there was a point in time where it wasn't cool to have a mullet, and that's when he had the mullet. Now that everybody is team mullet, he's like, "Oh, I'm too old to have a mullet."
I need carpenter pants and cargo shorts to come back. When those aren't cool, but there was a time when they were, Chad.
What a time to be alive if you're Tracy Lawrence at this point in time with the mullet. Kelly, overs for Iowa this year. I don't think they fared too well, but should we be changing our mind a bit with this over-under in the Big Ten championship game?
Yeah, I think you have to. Iowa is going to get some sort of defensive score, right? We know that that's what they do. That is going to pile on there. When you have a spread that's currently 21.5 pretty much on all the odds screens, it did open 23, and a total of 35, which is now basically 34, or at least headed in that direction. It's wild. Now, this is the largest spread of any Big Ten conference championship game in history, right? I think there was one with Ohio State a few years ago. They were 16.5-point favorites. But this is just mind-boggling. I can't take Iowa here. I really want to, but I feel like Michigan could just be going through the motions, right? They win, they're in. There's nothing to really think. They have to know they are sizable favorites here, and that's because everybody doesn't think Iowa can score. I actually think Iowa can score. I wouldn't be surprised to see this be, a 24-14 final. Iowa covers, and it goes over the total.
I know you love the Iowa defense for good reason. Michigan, though, I think wins big. Tony Petitti's going to hand them the trophy. That alone, throttle Iowa, and then you have Tony Petitti on the stage. I can't wait to see the speech that Harbaugh gives the presser afterwards. Washington and the line right now as they take on Oregon. What's up with the line? Vegas has this as a large spread, and when it opened, how did you play it, or did you?
I took the under 66. It opened 66.5. I took the under 66 mainly because what we saw in this first meeting was just absolute utter excellence. I don't think we're going to see that from Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. tonight. I think we're going to see a lot more defense, and that actually is why this total is so high, and it's coming down. Starting to see 65s on the odds screen, so I'm happy that somebody far smarter than myself agrees with me. Look, I'd love to take the dog here, you guys. Full disclosure, I have been on the Washington hype train all year long. The problem is, have they just been going through the motions the past few weeks? What's going on? Or has regression finally set in? And then on the flip side, I was big against Oregon. If you guys remember, I think it was week 3 when I was doing the show. I said I love Texas Tech. I thought Texas Tech was going to win that game. Oh, what happened? Oh, yeah, late pick 6. Oregon gets the cover, and I just get daggered. That was the first pick 6 that cost me a lot of money this year. And the reason why I wasn't that high on Oregon is because I didn't think they were a well-rounded team. Well, you know what they are right now? They're a well-rounded team. Bo Nix is fighting for his Heisman campaign. What happened in that first game, I think we need to kind of throw out the window, because now we're here on a neutral field. I know that everybody is going to want to back the Ducks here, and I understand why. From my power ratings perspective, this team, I've never probably had a team move up as quickly as this Oregon Ducks team. As I mentioned, I was very low on them. I do think that they are going to get the win here. Are they going to get in the college football playoff? Well, if they put a stamp on it, right, and make a statement, I think they might get in.
We've got time, 30 seconds here. I want to hit one NFL line and spread for you. 49ers, Eagles. 49ers on the road at Philly. Currently, San Fran favored by 2.5. It's begging for Philly. How are you playing this, though? Your answer will determine mine.
Yeah, I'm all over the Niners. Look, I've been betting against Philly, and it's been costing me money, including last week. And I had the Bills +3. Should have never been in a doubt. Should have never lost that football game, but we're not going to get into that. San Francisco does not forget what happened last year in the playoffs when Brock Purdy got knocked out. I think they come to play. Eagles, last year's Vikings team, 2.0. They are winning games they shouldn't be winning. And I think the reality is going to set in for them here on Sunday.
2.5. And underdogs at home for Philly with one loss on the season against San Fran, who apparently, all of a sudden Brock Purdy's good again to the national
Kelly,
pundits.
thank you for not hating my bet. I appreciate it. That's the best we can do.
She loves you, Chad.
Thank you so much.
Kelly, we love you. Thank you so much.
Love you guys.
Up. Yeah, see you. Kelly in Vegas gets it done. Follow her. You'll win. Coming up, the Pac-12. They haven't won as a conference this year, but they can win in the playoff.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. The bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that. Final hours here on the Friday edition. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. Join us in the chat on YouTube right now, streaming live and OutKick.com. How's the chat today, Chad?
It's good. Fired up. A lot of back and forth.
I'm going to jump in. How about that?
Jump
in.
in.
Join you?
They always get very excited when you jump in, Hutton. So please jump in.
Well, only because you're there, Chad.
Need all the help I can get in that chat.
All right.
So that's good.
Start blocking people.
I'm like Jon Snow, you know, when he's fighting everyone, the entire army's bearing down on him.
The Battle of the Bastards.
That's
or whatever.
me in the chat every day, just ready to go in the Battle of the Bastards.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, not even just in the chat, just period.
I'm wielding my sword against everyone in the chat every day, solo.
That's how we could describe the Pac-12 this year. Final year as we know it, with the abandoning ship prior to the start of the season, and of course 2 teams like Pac-12 to Pac-2, and it's down to 2 with Washington and Oregon who can get into the college football playoff and represent the conference that is not going to be represented in a Power 4 moving forward. Last ever Pac-12 game tonight, and from a conference perspective, before we look back on the top or maybe some lowlights, from a conference perspective this year, if you're a Pac-12 fan, do you want Oregon or Washington in the college football playoff for your best chance as a conference to win the title? I have said all season, and I'm sticking with it, I think Washington can play with anyone. Oregon certainly can as well. But Chad nailed it before we even kicked off the season with Michael Penix Jr. and where the Huskies would be. I'm not moving off of the momentum that started then. And call me crazy, I'm taking Michael Penix Jr. over Bo Nix in the systems that I'm watching, the receivers. And the fact of I've been watching more of Washington, and one of those games was against Oregon, and what was a great game, but it came down to a kick. But I'm taking Washington, and we'll see if we're taking Washington coming up in our wrong team favor.
Hutton, you know I've been huge on the Huskies, my Huskies, from preseason on. Love this team, love their chances of playing for a title, loved everything about them. Penix Jr., terrific.
Yep.
Still hope he wins the Heisman. I don't think they're the best option to go win in the college football playoff. I think Oregon's better right now. They're better defensively. They've got better talent. I think they've been playing better lately. Now, here's what I'm holding out hope for with this Washington team. There is a TCU-type magic with them. They are so battle-tested. They've had to win. They had to get a pick six, 96-yard pick six to beat Arizona State. They have survived.
So 1-2 against Oregon State.
Close game against Stanford.
Yep.
You know, Washington State comes down to a field
6
goal,
or 7
and they
games
win
like
last
that.
week. They've got so many games like that the hope is they've got that magic. Now, the magic ran out for TCU on the Monday of the national championship game against Georgia last year. But I think Oregon's just better right now. I also think there is something special about this Washington team.
Too.
So the way you pose the question, if I'm a Pac-12 fan, who could win it all? I feel better about Oregon with their talent and the team they have right now. But I'm not discounting Washington, and we'll get into it in wrong team favor because there's what did Kelly like to say? I'll sprinkle a little bit on it.
Yeah.
There's a sprinkling of magic dust on this Washington team that I don't know that Oregon has.
They're not 9 points better than Washington.
Oh, I agree.
But
that's a big line.
Vegas is saying yes, they are. And here's the other thing. Washington is gutsy. Their coaching staff, gutsy. That 4th and 1 call from their own 29, they're willing to go for it when their backs are against the wall. And then Penix Jr. nearly threw 2 more picks after they get the game-changing moment in the huge fourth conversion. But that's all a part of this story. And I've seen the head-to-head matchup earlier this year. I think Washington can, especially this year, this landscape of college football.
Yeah.
In thinking of,
there is something special about this group and their ability to find a way to win close games.
Hey,
and that is something you can't often quantify.
What
with any team in any sport.
And this is a topic of if
Clutch.
Oregon gets in. Yes, if Oregon gets in, Bo Nix at Auburn compared to Bo Nix at Oregon. And not just better, but championship worthy, but Heisman better. Crazy the transformation that he's had as a third generation legacy name at the university where his grandfather and his father played. Memories for me with the Pac-12, the great. It's USC with Leinart and Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll and Lindell White, and on the sidelines, Lauren Conrad from the Hills and from Laguna Beach, like all of
LC?
that. LC, Lowe. That era was the college era for me. That is what I think of when I think of Pac-12 and football specific. I don't think of as far as the dominance. It was USC, and oh, by the way, Reggie Bush apparently not allowed to actually claim those stats because of the $10,000 payment.
Yeah, I my memory of the Pac-12 will always be the Rose Bowl. Big games with UCLA taking place there, but also just the game in general mattering because it was the one, the granddaddy of them all, and it featured two conferences every year. It was very consistent. Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac-10, then Pac-12 versus the Big Ten. And with no Pac-12, that doesn't continue on. So I'll always think about that being the goal. We have Ryan Leaf on weekly, and he talks about the Rose Bowl team for Washington State. That was the goal if you played on any team in the Pac-12 for years. And while the Rose Bowl will continue to exist and teams will play each other that formerly played in the Pac-12 at times, it'll never be the same. So that'll be my biggest memory.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some classic players. There are other programs and individual players and quarterbacks from Andrew Luck to others. Pac-12 After Dark comes to mind. Just the branding that. Awful Announcing did a great job just listing some of those. And you've got stadiums. You've got students and trees,
Yeah.
all across. And
The Cal Berkeley guy that lived in the tree at one point for much of a season.
And plenty of comebacks. And for the most part, offense and defense. Some balanced teams. It is time from, and by the way, the bad, awful leadership. Awful leadership. And just trying to balance a budget as a conference and being a part of the Power Five to knowing the direction that college football is going.
And feeling like it did not have to happen this way. That it was a self-imposed penalty. That this was not inevitable. That they could have figured out a way to rally and keep it all together, and they couldn't. That's unfortunately the last image of the way out for the Pac-12. Sad.
Davey Hudson joins us. Davey, you have a specific memory with the Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, a couple come to mind. For starters, it was always a great stepping stone for me to become a head coach in the SEC when playing NCAA football, so I am going to miss that.
You're from Corvallis to the Plains at Auburn, or what was your job that was the entry point?
It was from Pullman to Baton Rouge most of the time, to be honest. And if I did love, you mentioned Pac-12 After Dark, man, and watching Mike Leach up there with the Cougars, him and Gardner Minshew, I mean, that moment where he puts the fake mustache on him, I love that. So I will miss not having those games to turn to at 1 a.m. on a random Saturday in October. But it's like you guys mentioned, it was just so poorly run there towards the end. And, I mean, Larry Scott just –
awful.
It set it up, and then George Kliavkoff was able to put the final nail in it.
On the heels of the Oregon brand, Chip Kelly, all of that. And it is as a conference where it's headed.
I'll also always remember that USC song they play on first downs. That's part of their the fight on. The dun 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 dun. Like you watch a game on ABC back in the day, and you would hear that over and over again, and it's just ingrained in your brain forever after that. I'll remember that part of it. As a kid, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. You didn't watch a ton of Pac-12 unless it was highlights of whatever regional game you were watching on the weekend.
Or if Michigan was playing
There was one year that
Notre Dame's
I
playing.
remember being a kid, and remember the Desert Swarm defense for Arizona? And I remember I had a Sports Illustrated subscription back when, Sports Illustrated meant something.
Yep.
I had a Sports Illustrated subscription, and Arizona was picked to win the national title that year. And I remember the cover with the Desert Swarm defense. And I remember they lost like 4 games that year, I think. It was not good. But I remember thinking I need to watch Arizona games. How can I do that? And in 1993, there weren't a lot of ways to do that.
It's a big year just in the TV rights deals as well, because, SEC is no longer going to be on CBS. So you topple that with the Pac-12 just kicking the can. But
Yep. And
I saw that
a lot of change coming.
CBS put out a huge video celebrating all their years with the SEC, a highlight video. And I just saw someone repost it, and say that I saw more Ed Ogeron than Vanderbilt in that entire clip.
Man, hearing that music, I just
pretty good.
Did we hear it?
Of all the years of it.
I'm glad it's gone, man. That music kind of gives me PTSD. It's like I'm back in Nam, It's just one of those things where watching Tennessee just get destroyed by Bama or Georgia. It's
going to be weird hearing that theme on Big Ten games now. That's the strange part.
Yep. If you're up in Kentucky, Chad, you hear that as an SEC fan, you may light a dumpster on fire, right?
It's true.
Or a couch.
Any excuse to light something on fire, that you're ready for it.
Time for Dump with Hutton and Withrow. Up, guys, for me, PGA Tour is dead.
Yep.
And Jay Monahan has sent them into this burning abyss of a dumpster. They have self-imposed the public investment firm with the Saudis, the December 31st deadline, and Monahan's looking for the investors. He's trying to be more transparent after not being at all through the initial negotiations going on here. And, you've got Mickelson, who is saying, based on what has happened prior to this live golf era, I approached the PGA Tour along with Endeavor, who purchased UFC and then has purchased WWE, with $1 billion type deal where the players could get half of what these not small events, a small part of the schedule would be. They didn't even take it under consideration because no one heard about it other than Monahan. Tiger Woods is pissed off as well, voicing his frustration about how things went down. And then there is John Rahm, who is expected, unless it's signed recently, to take a $300 million signing bonus over a 5-year term to join Live Golf. And the terms of that, after everything that's gone on, tells you they don't care. Live, I'm saying, does not care about the perception that they are here to take over. And Monahan is over. He's done. Because you've got the top voices in golf and the guy, Tiger Woods, now publicly stating that the leadership throughout this process was awful. That's a dumpster fire. It's headed nowhere because it's not going to exist much longer.
It's a good one. My dumpster fire
maybe
this
by
week,
name only, Chad.
Yeah, could be. My dumpster fire this week, Deadspin. And the story about the 9-year-old kid they accused of being racist that, in fact, was not. And now they've gone silent on the story because they're about to get sued by this kid's family, and they don't want to admit fault in all of this. Look, I said it earlier this week. I don't want to get into a whole other thing about it. General rule in journalism, or if you're covering something, 1, don't cover kids. There's no need to do that. And 2, don't just assume that a 9-year-old is racist because he's painted his face for his football team. That's a really dumb way to go about business. And Deadspin looks foolish. And now their editors are calling people sexist and racist for asking for comment from them about it. It is a complete dumpster fire. They're going to lose money in this. I don't know how much money Deadspin makes anymore. I really don't know. I saw someone send something to me on social media, said they're going to make millions off Deadspin. I'm thinking, does Deadspin have millions to spend on this kid? I really don't know the state of their business. I do know the state of that decision, and it's incredibly dumb, and it's led to a dumpster fire, and that's mine.
Guys, for my dumpster fire, I'll at least put out the disclaimer. If you're eating, now's probably a good time to put on some earmuffs.
Oh, goodness.
Yes. I've never heard of this restaurant before. It's called Chopped. It's known as like a creative
It's a salad
company.
spot.
Yep. And, well, Chopped's currently being sued because one of their customers was eating a salad and happened to find a finger. But it wasn't just bad enough that they found the finger in the salad. They actually ended up chewing on the finger beforehand. Now there's a lawsuit going on. Allison Cozy lives in Connecticut. This happened back in April. The suit's now coming out. But a woman, which it's pretty easy to track this down, one of their employees did chop off her finger, no pun intended, with the name of the restaurant as well. And she was cutting up some arugula. And after that had happened, they, for some reason, did not throw out the arugula. It got into Miss Cozy's salad. And she is alleging, I want to make sure I get this right, that she has suffered several injuries, including cognitive impairment, dizziness, nausea, panic attacks, shock, migraines, and neck and shoulder discomfort following the incident.
Normally in lawsuits, I hear the litany of things that you're suffering from, and I think, okay, maybe. In this, I'm like, yes.
It's a dumpster fire.
She's ill, but Hannibal Lecter would just call it an appetizer.
There'll be a settlement for
He'd be fine. That's just
whatever.
good protein. Solid protein for Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
That's wild. She cut her finger off, and they didn't stop the assembly line or
what were
whatever
you
was
doing?
going on.
You're over here with the arugula?
I think that would shut things down for a bit.
So, we don't see it on the top, so it must
Man,
be
you
gone.
lost your finger? Oh, let's stop the conveyor belt.
That is dumpster fire. You're right, Debbie. Back with Chad's top rankings for the games.
This is a broader issue on professional versus amateur and our college athletes amateur right now. Look, the Chicago Bears yesterday under Matt Eberflus just took a big dump in the bed because Matt Eberflus and his Tampa 2 defense went soft. Next thing you know, Jared Goff picked him apart and Dan Campbell lost his ever-loving mind. That kind of deal. All right, here's the thing though. When you're in college and you're being paid, guess what? Do you have an obligation? Do you have an obligation to speak to the media after a big game? Now, look, I understand if I'm the 6-team center. No, of course not. But when you're the quarterback of USC, fight on, all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Here's the deal. USC quarterback is as high profile, particularly when you've just won the Heisman. And now all of a sudden you get your brains beat out for not the first, not the second, but the third straight time. Third straight time you get your brains beat out by your rival, USC. You've already cried on the sidelines. You've had a horrible year. Apparently your team don't like you. They look like a dismantled mess. But you're a college athlete that's now making millions. Let me ask you guys. Are you to be treated like a pro? Are you to say, hey, look, this is just a student athlete. This is just a college kid. So Ian Rappaport on the rap sheet put this tweet out. And I'm curious about this. This fascinates me. Like, I'm tired of Caleb Williams. I've had enough of Caleb Williams. But Ian Rappaport made the connection from Joe Burrow speaking to the media when you are the face of a franchise. And he said this, Joe Burrow learned his season was over on Friday, understood his responsibility, went out, held a press conference. The job of a quarterback and the face of the franchise. Now, Ryan Cartier he's a USC guy. Caleb Williams has elected not to speak to the media after the loss to USC, a USC spokesman said. Now, let me go. See, I understand one is a professional athlete, all right? But isn't the other a professional athlete too? I mean, isn't Caleb Williams a professional athlete? This is where I've always said you got to be a little bit careful here. You do. You got to be a little bit careful. The deal is simple. You're being paid. You're a professional. You want to be an employee. As an employee, you have an obligation. You're the face of football going into the season. Now, you're not now. It's been a disappointing season. You've cried to your mama. You want to hug with your dogs. But, ladies and gentlemen, he's never going to suit up in a USC uniform again. So as soon as that is over, Is he a professional? I don't know, but it's a damn interesting thing to me. It really and truly is. It is a damn interesting thing because we want to treat these guys like kids. We do. We want to treat them like children. You know, when they get criticized, we want to say, well, they're just student athletes. You know what I mean? They're just student athletes. Okay, they're just student athletes. But the truth of the matter is they're paid employees. Maybe not the employee part, but they are paid. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like Caleb Williams is somebody you want on your team? Now, make no mistake. The measurables are going to be there, and he's going to be the first pick in the draft.
Sixth of the Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. We know Chad's high on Georgia and Bama because we discussed I can't miss game of any of these games. You're either on board with the fact you think it's going to be chalk because the season mostly has been, or you're looking for the chaos and the debate, the discussion, and the anger that will be across the country because there will be high-level programs that are going to be left out if there's the chaos that we have seen in some years past with the format for the 4-team headed into the 12. Chad, it is time for your top 10 games of the college football weekend.
Let's hit it.
College football, it's time to bang some hats. Here's Chad Withrow's must-see games this weekend.
Hutton beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Just ask Iowa fans. They think that team is beautiful.
They do?
No one else does, but 10 wins is beautiful. You know what's even more beautiful? 12 wins. That's what Liberty has. They're 12-0. For the first time in their program's 50-year history, the Liberty Flames finished the season undefeated under Jamie Chadwell in his first season, leading that program. Did a terrific job. New Mexico State, you may remember them. They're fresh off a 31-10 win over Auburn just a couple weeks ago. But the Aggies are traveling over 1,800 miles to face Liberty. This is one of those conference championship games that will take place at Liberty at the higher-seeded home field. Conference USA Championship. This game is tonight, Hutton, 6 p.m. Central Time on CBS Sports Network. It's the 10th out of 10 games. Let me also be clear. There are 10 games being played. This is very clearly number 10.
Over 1,800 miles, you said?
Over 1,800.
I just did the quick Google here. The flight time to Auburn, or mileage, was just over 1,200. And the line is peculiar given what we've seen recently from New Mexico State. But give me Liberty or give me Death.
Liberty -10 is that line that Hutton mentioned right there. Game number 9. Let's go to the Sun Belt.
Yep.
Or as some would call it, the Fun Belt. And this game should be fun also. Appalachian State at Troy. The Trojans a 6.5-point favorite. This game at 3 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Appalachian State, they've appeared in 4 of the last 6 Sun Belt Championship games. Troy, though, stingy on defense. 10th in scoring defense nationally, giving up 16.7 per game. This was one of Kelly and Vegas's picks. I think she likes Appalachian State in this game. Hutton should be a good one. Could be a low-scoring affair in this one also.
I look at this game and I feel awful for James Madison. That's what I think when I see this matchup. They're not allowed to play.
That's true. Now, I feel a little bit better about it that Appalachian State beat them head-to-head. But, yes, this should be James Madison in this game. I agree with you. Hey, but good news for the Dukes of James Madison. They get to go bowling because there weren't enough teams in the FBS that got bowl eligible with 6 wins. So now James Madison does get
11-1. App State,
bowl game.
8-4 or 9-3, one of the two.
Yeah. Game number 8, the MAC. Let's get into some action.
Let's do it.
The MAC is the one conference, Hutton, that is impervious to realignment. They just stay the same.
Is that good or bad?
No matter what. No one wants in. Here's what you got to ask
very
yourself.
gray. It's very gray.
Does no one want out or does no one want in?
Right.
That's the question about the MAC. But either way, they've stayed very consistent. Old school football fans will love the MAC is hanging tough there. This is Miami of Ohio against Toledo. Toledo, a 7.5-point favorite, 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff on ESPN. Toledo going for back-to-back MAC championships. And this is the league's two best offenses. 35 points per game for Toledo versus 27 points per game for Miami of Ohio. Toledo only loss this season was in week 1 by 2 points to Illinois. They are 11-1 on the season. Miami, their only losses to Miami, Florida, and also a close 21-17 loss to Toledo. Very good game first go around, Hutton. This should be another good one in the MAC championship.
Winner to is it the Motor City Bowl?
Is it a game that's played sometime in the teens of December, would be my guess?
Yes.
That's how I rank bowl games. If you're playing in the teens of December, it's not a high-profile bowl game. Let's go to our game number 7, my game number 7, Mountain West Championship. Boise State, a 2.5-point favorite at UNLV. This game's at 2 p.m. Central Time on Fox. So this is a weird one. Computer rankings forced this matchup after San Jose State actually won at UNLV last week, causing a 3-way tie atop the Mountain West Conference. Boise State lost their quarterback, great name, Maddox Madsen, lost him, but they've been rolling right along.
Sounds like a WWE name.
It does. I'm sure this guy could wrestle too. Maybe he wrestled in high school. They fired Andy Avalos 2 weeks ago. They're 2-0 without him. Spencer Danielson, the interim head coach for Boise State. UNLV, great offense, but Boise State favored on the road. UNLV, a really good story this year, too, with Barry Odom as their head coach.
Yeah, and Avalos was like 22-15 or 22-13 as his record at Boise. He's out, but they're still in.
Bring on Brian Harsin or one of the Moore brothers, either Kellen or his brother that's the offensive coordinator at Missouri. That's likely the next move for Boise State. Game number 6 should be higher, should be better. It's a big conference. In fact, it's so big, they just go by big at times. The Big Ten, number 2 Michigan, a 23.5-point favorite over number 16 Iowa, 7 p.m. Central Time kickoff on Fox. Is Iowa the most disgusting 10-win team in history? Hutton, they are dead last. Not in the Big Ten. They are dead last in all of college football in yards on the season.
Wow.
Dead last in yards, okay, for Iowa. 18 points per game. They are the only bowl team, not playing for a Big Ten championship. They're playing for a Big Ten championship 10 win. They're the only bowl-eligible team that's in the last 30 in total offense in America, okay? Hutton, the closest one to them that's bowl eligible, they're averaging 18 a game. Closest one to them that's bowl eligible is Rutgers, who averages 24 points per game. 6 points better than Iowa. Try to wrap your mind around all of those facts and then once again realize the Iowa Hawkeyes are 10-2.
This is why they're not the most disgusting 10-win team, because they're not an 11-win team. And with the win, they would be in the college football playoff. And let me also say that, from a propaganda standpoint, by winning and blowing out Iowa, Michigan's going to be like, see, signs didn't matter. Their offense is so bad, Chad, that having that advantage doesn't exist if you had the signs that were coming in. Is the over-under for scoring still, is it still half a point in each half? You could bet whether or not Iowa will score in a half.
Could Iowa? Yeah, it's half a point. I don't think it's moved.
Well,
could Iowa get the defensive call from Michigan on every play, like right before? Could they tell them exactly what? Hey, we're going to blitz from this side. There's going to be a stunt in the middle. We're going to have a twist here. We're going to do this. Could they get every signal and score double digits? That's the question. Oh, you're going to blitz over here. I'm going to throw a screen there, and they could check and do whatever they wanted. Could they score double digits doing that? I doubt it. Terrible. But 10 wins. Congrats, Hawkeyes, on that. Let's get into our top 5, shall we?
Absolutely.
Game number 5. The American Athletic Conference Championship between the Southern Methodist University and Tulane. At Tulane in New Orleans, Tulane 22nd in the country. Tulane, a 3.5-point home favorite. This game, 3 p.m. Central Time on ABC. Great matchup. Both teams undefeated in their conference. Tulane, a win sends them to their second straight New Year's Six game. For SMU, best offense in the conference and the best defense in the conference. 6.5 yards per play on offense, holding teams to 4.4 yards on defense, but no starting quarterback. Preston Stone, injured last week, broke his leg against Navy. Backup quarterback for SMU. Tulane favored. Should be a great game, Hutton, for two teams playing for that coveted group of 6 spot in the New Year's Six.
So right behind Tulane currently is Liberty, based on what I'm looking at, unless it's an old one. So if Liberty were to lose and Tulane were to lose,
SMU got the spot.
Goes.
Yep.
All right, this is
and
high
it could
stakes.
work out where SMU jumps Liberty, even if Liberty wins.
Okay.
If they win this game, but SMU's got to win to have a shot. Both teams have to win to have a shot at that spot in the New Year's Six.
By the way, this game would also, if James Madison were eligible, they would get that spot.
Yes, they would, but they're not.
They're not.
But they will go
They
bowling.
should be.
Game number 4, Big 12. Let's do it. Number 18, Oklahoma State against number 7, Texas. In Jerry's World, the Longhorns, 14.5-point favorites. 11 a.m. kickoff on ABC. Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, Ollie Gordon II. He had over 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns on the season. Coach of the Year in the Big 12, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. Do you think that pisses off Steve Sarkisian and Texas just a little bit, that Oklahoma State's getting all the accolades? Absolutely it does. Texas rushed for 300-plus yards versus Texas Tech last week. The 2 games where Oklahoma State gave up over 250 rushing yards, a blowout loss to UCF recently, and a loss to South Alabama all the way back in week 2. If Texas can run it the way they did against Texas Tech, good night, Cowboys.
Cowboys with 3 losses on the season, but their wins. You want to know who's going to be the dawn of the Big 12 moving forward? It could be them.
It could be Gundy.
They just knocked out Oklahoma, and they can knock out Texas for Brett Yormark.
Can I make one suggestion for Gundy?
They've got him. Yes.
You can't fully grow back the mullet overnight, but wear a Stetson Cowboy hat for this game on the sideline in Jerry's World. Wear the Cowboy hat as the head coach of the Cowboys.
Be the Wyatt Earp
please.
for the Big 12 moving forward.
Yes. He's coming, and he's bringing hell with him, as Wyatt Earp, as Kurt Russell once said in Tombstone. Game number 3, ACC Championship. Number 14, Louisville against number 4, Florida State. The Noles, a 2.5-point favorite. 7 p.m. Central Time kickoff on ABC. It is win and in time for Florida State. They win this game, I firmly believe they're not getting knocked out. They are going to be in the college football playoff. Is Rodemaker, or is it Rodemaker? Whoever it is he okay? Questionable game time decision. Florida State only managed 224 yards against Florida. Not great offensively against a Florida defense that was struggling. Louisville allowed only 83 rushing yards to Kentucky. Weird game in a 38-31 loss. There was a special teams touchdown for the Cats. Louisville, though, defensively, very sound. Can Florida State run the ball? If they can do it, they're going to have a great shot to win and get in that playoff.
Louisville, they'll be in their first Power 6, New Year's Day 6 game in 11 years. They're still one of the best storylines of the college football
Jeff
season.
Brom crushed it in year 1.
Yeah, props. Shouldn't have lost to Kentucky.
Nope, should not have. Weird game, but got to win that one. Game number 2, let's go out west. PAC12. Let's go to Vegas, in fact. Vegas is all about winners. Heisman Trophy might get decided tonight. If someone has a heroic performance in this game, whether it be Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr., they may be your next Heisman Trophy winner with Jaden Daniels not playing this weekend. Heisman voters get one more chance to see someone. They're going to see both these guys tonight. So a big opportunity. Oregon, best team in America at not allowing sacks. Washington, they're second in sacks allowed. So 2 teams that don't let defenses get on their quarterback. How disrespected does Washington feel right now? They beat Oregon earlier this year. Granted, Oregon, I think, was 0 for 4 on 4th down, missed a field goal in the game. Washington hit a big field goal in that game. almost a double-digit underdog. Will the Huskies be able to ride that disrespect card right into a Pac-12 championship, Hutton?
This is a playoff game. This is a version of the 12-team playoff right here. Win, and you know you're in the 4. And the team with one loss that we haven't discussed in this scenario would be Washington. How far would they fall if chaos ensues?
This game takes place, by the way, 2 hours, 25 minutes from now. It'll be kicking off on ABC. So a big one tonight. Game number 1, we went west, young man. Let's go south, young man. SEC championship down in Atlanta. SEC fans taking Atlanta like Sherman once did. Trey Wallace, based on his Wi-Fi connection at hotel, also taking down Atlanta, covering this game for OutKick. Number 1 Georgia, a 5.5-point favorite against number 8 Alabama. 3 p.m. kickoff on CBS. Get all that SEC, CBS music you can, because next year that theme music will be for the Big Ten. Bama has been mistake prone this year. We remember the 4th and 31 throw from Jalen Milroe. What we forget is what led to that 4th and 31, a missed snap from Jalen Milroe and his center that backed the Tide up. They've had a penalty issue. They had 8 penalties against Auburn. Georgia, fewest penalties in the SEC. But Bama has been battle tested. It was a 3-point win over Arkansas, 6-point game against Tennessee, A&M, Ole Miss, and Auburn late in the game. Can the battle-tested Tide, Hutton, get it done in this game? Game number 1 of the week. Those are my top 10 games ranked.
I love the list. Let's preview a bit more of the top 2 on your list when we come back and what Jalen Milroe can prove against the Bulldogs. Plus, we got wrong team favored out in Vegas.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Fast-paced show today, Chad. Getting to the weekend. That's how we like it.
I looked up from my computer in this chat that was so active all day, and I just said, oh, wow, this is the final segment.
I failed to go back to the chat after I jumped in.
I got to go do a radio interview right when we sign off. That's always a killer to me.
Davey and I were noticing during the break that Dockich is wearing a very similar, it's not the same, very similar coat jacket that you had the pullover yesterday. He asked if it reminded me of yours. And I said, no, it's not the same color. And then I said, oh, I see what you're asking. Yes, it looks like a coach.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How did it go? Your debut as the assistant instead of the head coach.
It wasn't my debut. We were 4-0 going into it last night, and we lost by 2 touchdowns in a basketball game, 28-14. Oh. So rough night. Did you sit on the bench and just chill? Well, I do. For the most part, I was saying some things. Our head coach is great.
I was saying some things.
Shout out Coach Venata, who's terrific, our head coach.
Oh, I'm not taking shots there.
And she, no, I know you're not.
Okay.
I'm explaining how good she is. Okay. But she's very good with the kids and knows exactly how. And her daughter's on the team also, and she coaches at the school my daughter's at. It is 3rd through 5th grade, Hutton, and you're not around a lot of 3rd through 5th graders.
I'm not.
There is a wide gap in physical size and ability between 5th graders and 3rd graders. And there was a 5th grader on this team that we played that looked like Candace Parker playing toddlers of our 3rd graders. And we got a bad matchup. There's no way to plan it, but each girl has to play like a certain amount of time. So you have 4-minute increments they play.
Is this 8-foot goal or what is this?
We had twice where we had all of our 3rd graders in, 5 of them in at once, and that the 5th grade girl for them was in. And, I mean, it was just get it across half court right when you cross the timeline where they could play defense. She'd go steal the ball and go lay it in. Get it across half court, try to pass it, steal it, go lay it in on the other end. So I think she went on a 12-0 run by herself over 4 minutes, and that pretty much put us away.
It's like Larry Bird just telling you what they're doing and then doing it.
Yeah.
Playing with the left hand.
Yeah, this girl was feasting on the 3rd graders for a stretch. So it was a rough time. I knew when I looked up, and my daughter, who's in 3rd grade, I'm like, oh, she's might be the point guard in this situation. Not going to be good. It's not going to be a good few minutes here for this team.
It's going to be good for 4 teams whenever we come back on Monday, going to the college football playoff. We welcome in Davey Hudson for Wrong Team Favored. And I'm bringing in the discussion for Georgia and Bama. Of the 11 FBS teams that Georgia's played this season, only 4 ended with Georgia winning by 10 or fewer points. All 4 of those teams kept it close with a dual threat quarterback. And I'm riding with the Crimson Tide, and what I have seen in the progression from Jalen Milroe and the coaching job that I've seen from this Alabama staff from Saban on down. I like the storyline of Georgia. I love the storyline of Bama this year. We are 2 months removed from declaring Saban done and whether or not he's going to be on College game day next year. And now all of a sudden, that's gone. And what's weird about this is the discussion that Georgia hasn't lost in 2 years or whatever, and we've got Alabama in the way from then possibly going for a three-peat. Massive stakes. And from just the perception of the SEC, Georgia losing, Bama winning, and what happens, I kind of want to watch that play out. Wrong team favorite. I'm taking Bama to win.
See, I like this pick, Hutton, and you look at 08, 2021, when Nick Saban's a big underdog in this SEC championship, what he's done in those games, pretty good track record. This is the logical pick. Let's throw those points up there again, if we can, on the screen. This is the logical move for a guy who's winning the competition with 33 points. Davey's also going to probably have a pretty good pick at 29 points.
Yeah.
I've got no points all year. I'm 0 on the season. So what I need are points, because we're going to have a big round-robin 5-team extravaganza. We're each going to pick 5 games for bowl season.
Love this.
And the playoff coming up, so I'll have a chance to come back. Give me my Washington Huskies. Play the disrespect card all you want. You won this game before. Vegas thinks you're a double-digit almost underdog. I'm going to take 9.5. Washington tonight. Sprinkle some of that magic dust on Michael Penix Jr., and let's get this thing done in Vegas, a city of winners and losers. May Washington, who has been a winner in every single game so far this season, come out on top tonight. Give me my Huskies. Get me back in this competition with 9.5 big points.
Does the Pac-12 actually go out with a good game, or do you think it's one of those?
It's going to be a good game.
Davey,
Okay.
if my picks have anything to do with this, it will be a terrible game.
Well,
and
not
Oregon's going to boat
You can
race
lose
them.
by one. You can lose by one.
Oh, it's going to be the
Still
way.
a loss. I don't remember the final
the way
scores
Washington
of yours.
played against Arizona State in that game, they could come out and play tonight that way.
You almost had the BYU over Oklahoma game.
And
no
it
one-
may be 35-13. Thank you for acknowledging that near miss of BYU and Provo. Also, Colorado, Arizona. That was a last-second field goal. Almost had 10 points in that one. Almost.
Guys,
Almost.
Chad, you were talking about the Fun Belt and your top 10 games, and even though this should be James Madison, I'm anticipating and expecting that Appalachian State takes down Troy tonight. If you look at this rivalry, the last 10 games, Appalachian State's won 8 of those last 10. They've won 5 in a row, and it's just whenever I look at these two teams' seasons, App State's been able to always come out in top. Like if this game's going to overtime, they've just learned how to win in those closer games. Whereas Troy, they've had a couple of close games, but they've been much better about blowing their opponents out as of late. And so if it's one of those close games, I just think App State's going to ultimately prevail. This game's tomorrow at 4 Eastern, and give 5.5. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. If Alabama's not able to pull it off, that would put me right on top. And
Yeah,
I
right.
never would have thought that would have been the case. But
You've been on a nice run.
So,
And I feel like I've been close in some of these picks recently. I was on a great start.
I got
then
destroyed yesterday or last week.
Chad, your Vanderbilt pick over South Carolina wasn't a close game. Didn't you have them? Vanderbilt was.
Is it on there?
It was a blowout. I thought. I don't know. I
Where's
can't go
my,
back that far.
yeah, can we? If we no,
that
was like 2 weeks ago, so maybe not. That may have been the Oklahoma BYU pick that I had, 24.5.
It was
I'm not
close.
sure.
I know Vandy, South Carolina was
to your
not
point,
close.
I've had a bunch that have not been close at all.
Let me pose the debate this way for the playoff, because we're discussing a lot of one-loss teams. If Bama wins, Texas wins, what if Washington loses? How long during the season was that victory considered the best win of the season over Oregon in the regular season? And you know they value, the committee does, Oregon's loss to Washington. They're 5th, Washington's 3rd, and then you've got a one-loss Washington that's in the mix, having played Oregon a second time with a one-loss Ohio State. Bama's the SEC champion. Georgia's one loss. There's a lot of discussion, and I'm simply throwing them back in the mix because they've been in the mix all year through the committee's power rankings. They're a 9-point underdog, and they're at 3 and Oregon's at 5. As they should be. They're unbeaten.
Yeah.
They beat Oregon. But if we're going to go by what Vegas thinks, why even play these games?
I hope
And
we get a really good game tonight.
I think we do.
More than anything else, I think we will too. I think it's going to be a repeat of the first one.
But if we get a very tight game like a repeat of the first one, how is Washington viewed in the eyes of the committee? And we went a month and a half thinking the Pac-12 could get 2 teams in.
They're out. Oregon replaces them in all discussion because they're the Pac-12 champion. And look, I love Washington as a story, but as it should be.
Okay.
Oregon won later in the year. We know how everything works. Where you win later, it helps you out more.
And there's a scenario where they're in
and
with
they're
a loss.
the champion. Yeah, Washington's out.
Florida State loses. Texas loses. There's a way to get
Take
back in.
A lot of losing for that to
Yeah,
happen.
I think the only situation you could get in.
This is a
if that would
playoff game
happen,
tonight.
You would need Georgia to win, Michigan to lose, Florida State to lose, Texas to lose, and then of course Alabama would lose.
Well, but Florida State losing isn't far-fetched.
It's also a playoff game, Hutton, that only ensures one of the 2 participants in the playoff.
Well,
and that's Washington.
But based on
undefeated getting in.
Based
it
on
does
certain
not
results,
ensure
though,
Oregon anything.
But based on certain results, last week with Michigan and Ohio State was a playoff game.
Oh no!
And based on certain results, Ohio State could get in.
No, I'm saying Washington's the only one who controls their destiny.
Oh yes,
at this point,
okay.
right? Oregon wins. Yeah, they could get in. A lot of things have to happen around them, or something has to happen. Maybe not a lot.
I think
a little has to happen around them for them to get in.
I agree. The winner's in,
but the loser is out.
Oregon's definitely out.
I think yes. Maybe Washington with a lot of favorable things happening.
Yes,
other help.
A lot of help.
So where would the spread need to be for us to take Iowa and the points? I'm not even close. I'm not even close.
Good spot.
I would take I'm laying the point. I would take Michigan at the spread.
Yeah, I would. I mean, Vegas sets there for a reason. I could see a scenario where this is, 23.5? I could see this being a
22 right now.
Yeah, I think it went down just a tad.
I could see it being 24-3 and Iowa covering.
I just get the sense this is a boat race with Michigan coming out, and they win going away, and Tony Petitti has to hand out the trophy with a score that is just lopsided to no end.
I vowed to not touch Iowa games after last week, so
I would.
I took the over when Davey was so passionate about it. Davey cannot send the group a text where he's passionate about a bet after 8 p.m. Because after 8 p.m. on the weekend, if I've had something to drink,
then I'm
gonna bet it, and I'm just immediately go to my app and I bet it. And I did that last week when he sent that.
Yeah, I saw it got down to 25, and I was like, that's easy money.
If my response is just simply LFG in all caps, you know that's not good for anyone.
Let's our NFL moneymaker locks. The pick by Kelly. I mean, let's mention her here too, because she says to take San Francisco, a favorite on the road, the home dog being Philadelphia. I'm not going there. I'm playing that. I'm following her. I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts on the road against the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee's 4-0 at home, but they're not. I mean, Henry rushed for like 30 yards in their first matchup in Indy. It's an offensive line that can't protect the quarterback. Colts are better, and that's tough to say considering where the Titans thought they were and where the Colts were going to be at this point. And they weren't thinking they were going to have Minshew playing in this. I know Taylor's out, but they were still able to run the football without him to begin the season. I'm taking the Colts as the road favorite.
I've had a lot of luck NFL-wise, anytime touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins had a good game against the Colts the first go-around. He is plus 200. I think he's 5th or 6th down the list of odds to score a touchdown in this game. I think Will Levis at home is going to connect with DeAndre Hopkins for a touchdown.
Okay.
Give me Hopkins anytime touchdown plus 200. Give me the Colts to win the game.
Rashee Rice also hit for you last week.
He did. Give me the Colts to win the game, but Hopkins will score a touchdown.
Davey?
Well, you mentioned Rashee Rice. I'm taking the under in the Chiefs-Packers game. And right now it's at 43. If you look at the last time these two teams faced each other, Jordan Love actually started in place of Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm not expecting a 13-7 game like we saw there, but I just think both these defenses are playing much better than their respective offenses. And so it's going to be up in Green Bay. It's going to be a night game. It's going to be cold. There's going to be some potential snow earlier in the day. And I don't think the weather will be too much of a factor, but it'll be enough to where it could cause a few turnovers here or there. I just think whenever I look at these defenses, I feel much more confident than the offenses. And so, again, primetime unders. I know last night wasn't one that hit for us, but that's where I'm leading. The other thing, I was tempted to take the Bucks -5. I'm going to hold off on that, but what's fascinating is Tampa Bay is one game out of hosting a playoff game, but also they'd be picking 7th if the draft happened today.
And they've got, Carolina this week?
They do, yes.
Chad,
regime change, though.
More interesting post-game presser with both teams winning. Harbaugh or Gundy?
Give me Gundy,
Give me
especially when he
both.
wears a cowboy hat.
Give me both.
Go cowboy hat, Gundy. Do it. Do it.
Enjoy.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Championship weekend.
Let's do this.
Kicks off in a little over an hour or so.
Time to win. LFG.
Can't wait.
Let's go.
Back at it on Monday to recap it. 3 o'clock Eastern. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick Network.